Hello. I'm not going to be playing Spotify anymore because it keeps muting my audio. So I'm just going to play Mark Belling. This is Mark Belling, by the way. Handsome guy. No, I don't know. Anyways, here we go.
This Smart Belling podcast is presented by Annex Wealth Management. There's a significant difference in financial advisors. Know the difference. Get started today. AnnexWealth.com.
This is the Mark, still raining? This is the Mark Belling late afternoon show on News Talk 1130 WISN. I know a guy who flew into town last night around 12:30 in the morning. He called Uber and Noah showed up in the dark. That's such a bad joke. It's not even funny. Where's Paul? He's not here. Paul would have laughed because he was afraid that I would yell at him if he didn't laugh. We have Armin sitting in for Paul. I think Paul is off. Is he off all week, or when is he off? Do we even know? He's off through Wednesday. No. What do we need him for? Do we need him? I was gone for 2 days. Do we need him? Everybody's. This is the time of the year. Anyway, we've got a show here. This whole rain thing. I'm sure somehow this is because of climate change. Just as I'm sure the fact that Hawaii halfway dodged the bullet from the hurricane is because of climate change, and I'm sure whatever we have that's going on is because of climate change. But boy, it's got to the point that people are afraid to go into their basements. Just figure, well, if there's water in it, I can't do anything about it for 3 days anyway, so, let's just wait 3 days and then go down there and look and see whether or not there's something that I have to deal with. The waterproofers and the people that do the carpet cleaning, and this is a field day for them, except they're so far backed up and they, like everybody else, are having an unbelievably hard time finding employers. Go to a restaurant and just try to find a restaurant in which the waiter doesn't say we're understaffed today. Nobody can find servers. Nobody can find kitchen help. We might need to elect a few Democrats to slow down this economy. We just don't have enough unemployment. I'm going to start with Trump and this Mexico deal and kind of roll from there. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about in the show, and we're going to do a couple of segments that I want to tell you about right now. Later on in the show, I know that zillions of you had an opportunity to tour we have to stop calling it the new arena. Are people still calling it the new arena? Or are they calling it Fiserv Forum yet? That transition will occur rapidly, but well, you've heard people talk to you. Are they saying have you been to the new arena? Or do they say, have you been to Fiserv Forum? What are you hearing people say? They're using Fiserv Forum. They're already using the name. So when New Arena is done, Fiserv Forum. Yeah, you see Fiserv Forum. You see Fiserv Forum. People have wondered whether or not that name would start rolling off the tongue. I think it does roll off the tongue. It'll be just fine. This business of no capital letters though, except when you put it in print, there is in capital letters. That's a weird one. They got to decide on one or the other. If you go to the building, it's all lowercase, including on the floor, on the side of the building, and all the signage. It's all lowercase because Fiserv's logo is lowercase. But then when the newspaper runs a story about it, they type it out correctly, in which both F's are capitalized. Seems to me it should be one or the other. It took the longest time for people to understand that BMO Harris demands that we call them the company BMO, which is way dorkier than this. If we were going to actually turn initials into a word, even though the problem with calling it BMO is there were no E's in there. We were just supposed to, because they wanted us to say it that way, we're supposed to say it that way, and like obedient sheep, like a bunch of morons, we've all done that, and we all call the company BMO Harris, even though there's no EE in there. So we can use the Fiserv form. Anyway, we're going to have a segment. I just started doing talk radio. I really don't know much about a thing. We're going to do a thing. Well, it is a thing. We're going to do a segment or two in which we're going to take calls from people who have had a chance to get into the building and share their impressions. I did. They finally allowed me in on Friday. I'm not exactly a VIP as far as the Bucks ownership and management are concerned. I may be a season ticket holder for 18 million years, and I may have #1 rated radio talk show and all of this stuff. I may have all of that stuff, but I'm not in there when the newspaper and Channel 6 and Channel 4 and all that are doing their previews. Or I don't get any of that exclusive tour. I just get the same thing that anybody else who buys tickets get. But I did get in there before they had the big thing with the general public on Sunday, so I had an opportunity to get all the way through the building in. I've compiled a long list of observations, and we'll do a segment or two in which people who had an opportunity to get in did this. I've got Armin producing. We're going to try to make this interesting. The whole point of it is to make it informative for those of you who have not yet seen the building. I think they said they had 60,000 ticket reservations for yesterday. I know not that many people showed up, but I did drive close to it to see how it was just an absolute madhouse in terms of traffic west of the river. I didn't get within 3 blocks of the arena, but I wanted to just drive by to see if a lot of people were down there. And once I saw that the streets were gridlocked, okay, fine, that's enough. That's all that I have to see, and I beelined and headed in the other direction. That thing was Sunday. Anyway, I was through the arena on Friday, and I'll share you my impressions. Now, there's also a story that we're going to share with you a little bit later on in the program as well about a member of a county board in a local community being accused of sexual harassment that occurred on a local political campaign. It's an explosive story, and I'll have an exclusive report on that a little bit later on in the program. I want to remind you also, we're just knocking on winners. Every year of all the national contests we have, the iHeartRadio Music Festival Flyaway Texting Contest is the one that our station has the most winners. You know, we do these national texting contests, and usually the prize is $1,000. And once a year, the prize is the trip to Las Vegas for the iHeartRadio Music Festival Flyaway. And as you know, our audience has done spectacularly well in this national contesting for the longest time. There's hundreds of stations in our company that take part in this, and we're just one of them. But we knock out winners from our station again and again and again and again and again and again and again. How they doing in those stations down the hall here? Do they ever get any winners? Urban says intermittently. That's a good word for it, intermittently. I would say rarely. Well, anyway, of all of those national contests, the one that we seem to pop out the highest number of winners in is the iHeartRadio Music Festival Flyaway Contest, and I fully understand why that is. People from Wisconsin love to go to Las Vegas. That's what it is. You get a Las Vegas trip, yeah, you get to go to the concert, but you're also going to Las Vegas, and a lot of people take part in the thing. We had 2 more winners on my program during the couple of days that I was off on Thursday or Friday. I think that's 8 winners from my program and 16 altogether on WISN, although I may be a little off on the numbers since I was off for a couple of days. That contest continues for 3 more weeks, so I'll have words to give you at 4 o'clock or a little bit after, and then 5 o'clock or a little bit after. I want to start with 2 stories with the president. The trade deal he announced today with Mexico. I'm going to be a little blunt on this topic, as opposed to my normal mealy mouth, mush mouth. Not really. You can't.
I
really
plan
tell
on
where
playing
I'm coming
until
from.
the podcast is over.
One of the things that I just despise on both sides, the left and the media, which of course is now one and the same, are guilty of this all the time, but some people on the right are as well. And that is to just be dishonest about what's something that's happened because of your own opinion. I'm not expressing this well. Let me use an analogy that's always the best way for me to do my communicating.
Couple my nose.
Suppose you don't like a football team. Who do you hate the most, Art?
If they strike this
The
out
Vikings.
because of the
Without a
audio,
doubt.
I probably won't continue to record.
Suppose you hate the
Honestly.
Vikings. And suppose the Vikings play on the Sunday night national game and they play, I don't know, whoever it is, and they win 27-3.
But I doubt
And they look
will.
really,
I
really good at
doubt that
doing
they
it, and they're
will.
dominant. I love using football analogies. They work for everything. A dishonest
Yeah.
person who
No
just
hands.
lets the Vikings look, they suck. They didn't look that good at all. It was 3 turnovers, that's all
I wish
it
it
did.
could
They
stop
didn't look
once
very
the
good. They're
enemy's
not
dead,
that
though.
guy. It
That'd
was
be
not
cool.
impressive at all. Whereas, in fact, it was impressive. That's just being dishonest. Even if you don't like someone, to go out and not accurately report when you're telling someone else what happened, I don't want, and I get in sports, emotions come in, and this is a news reference that I make, but this happens all the time now. You have to have enough of an open mind to be able to accurately process what's happening in life. I'll use another analogy, and I'm going to get to the Trump-Mexico thing, but I'm doing this to make a point. There are liberals who just keep standing up and telling you that MPS is not a lousy school system. Well, for crying out loud. On the overall, the statistics don't lie. It's completely screwed up. But because they have a vested interest in propping up a government-run school system, and they have a vested interest in propping up their political allies who are in the teachers' union and so on, they'll just go out and they will not discuss reality. So we can't have an honest discussion about how to best improve the quality of education in Milwaukee. We've been stuck on this forever and ever and ever because the liberals refuse to acknowledge that MPS is failing. Well, when you can't have an agreement on the basic facts, how do you proceed from there? Now, I'm going to turn it on myself here for a moment. Let's imagine in 3 years, the trolley, Barrett's stupid streetcar, is a raving success. Everybody loves it. It's causing no traffic jams at all. It's moving smoothly through the community. It's always packed with riders, and all sorts of new businesses have opened up and developed along the route. I can't fathom that, but let's suppose it happens. In other words, let's suppose I turn out to be wrong. What kind of an idiot would I be 3 years from now if all of those good things were happening and I was still saying it's a failure? Even though I'm looking right in front of me and it is a success. It would be dishonest of me to not say what's going on. This brings me to Trump and trade. All of these people, including a lot of them on my side, some conservatives who are free traders, are being proven completely wrong. Trump today announced a trade deal that is good for us and good for Mexico and better than the thing that we started with, NAFTA. He has played he's insulting the Mexicans, he's picking a fight with their government. The statements that he makes, we're going to have a terrible relationship there. He's not going to be able to work with the Mexicans by insulting them with regard to the border. Now he's picking a fight with them on NAFTA. In fact, without regard to what you think about trade deals, what was announced today is on better terms than what we started. For those who believe that we have to have a trade deal in place so that there are rules, well, we have one again, presuming ratification. For the people who didn't like NAFTA because they felt that the United States was getting screwed on it, what Trump has unveiled is a trade deal that is now on more favorable terms to us here in the United States. So whether you like Trump or not, and I get that the people who hate Trump just cannot acknowledge when something good happens. Trump has succeeded. Now, we don't know that he's going to be able to do this with China. We don't even know that he's going to succeed fully with the European Union. But we know here with regard to Mexico, and I suspect the next one's going to be Canada, that the President of the United States came in, sized up our trading relationship with this major trading partner at Mexico, said the United States was not getting a very good deal off of it, and he made it better, and that's going to be to the benefit not only of us, but also to the Mexicans, because now we are going to be able to continue to trade with them, but on terms that are more favorable to the United States. Trump's approach, think about it. People keep taking Trump's bait on everything again and again and again and again and again. You've got all sorts of people out there saying that Trump just doesn't want to trade with anyone. That is not true. Trump's approach on almost every issue that exists, he does things the same way, and you'd think that people would figure it out by now. And this all comes at me. It comes at you, as you know, from somebody who, when Trump was running early in 16, I thought he'd be in over his head. I did. Do I feel like a total moron when I say I was wrong about that? No. You size things up, and you've got to be willing to process what is happening and then alter your statements and your views to reflect reality. The alternative is to be, you know what, someone who can't, things are going on and you can't see it and you're seeing the exact opposite. You know what the term for that is? You're delusional. Those who think that Trump is not trying to negotiate better trade deals and is showing tremendous effectiveness at it are being delusional. Now, I admit the story's not over. The China thing is hanging out there. We still have a battle with the EU, even though there seems to be progress there. Who knows what's going to happen with Canada? But the Trump approach, it's the same on every issue that he has. He comes out and he whacks you in the face and talks all bellicose. Bam, 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 this stinks. Then things quiet down for a bit. Then he implements policy that's bam, 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 bam. Everybody freaks. And then he cuts the deal. And the deal is never as strong as the bam, 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 but he moved the ball in the right direction. He does this on every single issue and on every single thing. He even did it with the Republican Party when he was running for president. He trashed everything that was Republican when he was running in the primaries. But he managed to put together a campaign when Priebus was over at the RNC, in which they worked together wonderfully well. They shared information. They got themselves elected. And so on. He's tried it that way with North Korea, and maybe it's going to fail. The North Korean thing appears to be spinning its wheels right now, but again, at least he's trying, and it's the same approach. Bash the fat-faced guy forever and ever and ever. Bash him, bash him, bash him. Create the impression that, hey, me, Trump, I'm crazy enough, I might actually nuke you. Get the attention of the Chinese so they tell fat-face, hey, you better talk to Trump and try to work something out. Once the North Koreans show willingness to do that, suddenly Trump changes his tone and he tries to cut the deal. This isn't new. It's in his book. He wrote The Art of the Deal a trillion years ago. He just describes this. He does it this way every single time. People have panicked or overreacted. Oh my God, there's going to be a trade war. It's the end of the world. We're going to destroy the economy. The sanctions and tariffs that are put in place are being put in place for the purposes of trying to get a better deal. He said he wanted to tear up NAFTA because NAFTA sucked. The people that are just absolutely can't do anything but criticize Trump. Just say Trump doesn't want to have a said-havity trade with Mexico. That's insane. Clearly, that's not the case. He just wanted a better deal. And he's gotten us now with Mexico a better deal. This is the reason why they state that the stock market rallied today. To whatever degree it rallied. I don't even know how much it's up. What is it up? The Dow's up there. Right there. There it is. A little monitor cooperated right when I said Dow was up about 250. I think the S&P lower percentage, like 22 or something. Transport's at a good day. 127. All right. So the stock market rallied on this news. I think he's going to try the same approach as we deal with the EU, and that's also the approach he's taking with China. I've argued forever, or at least I've stated that, I used to be a free trader. And I've changed my view over the last few years. It started about 6 or 7 years ago. It really started during Clinton. And then during W. Bush, in which I felt China was walking all over us on everything. And I said that when you're dealing with another superpower, and right now China is probably the world's #2 superpower, we're #1. I'd say Russia's 3. That But you've got to use everything in your arsenal, and trade is one of them. That free marketeers and American business have been saying that China's a gold mine, and China is a gold mine. So therefore, let China do whatever we want, and we'll get the best we can out of it. The problem with that has been is that China has screwed us on any number of things during this time. The copyright issue is an enormous problem, depending on whether or not you care about things like this. When I say copyright, trademark infringement, the whole thing, all sorts of American products. They're just counterfeit stuff. I swear, the Chinese counterfeit everything. It's a huge. Yeah, you want to Google interesting stuff? The rare coin market. There are so many knockoffs running around out there right now that are made in China, in which they take a piece of metal and try to make it look like it was an 1870 gold piece. Now they have to use gold in order to do it, and they have to make it look like it's a rare coin in order to be, in order to pull that off, because it's easy to tell if the thing isn't gold. They even take, there are companies, I forget what you call them, they certify rare coins. And they'll grade the coin and they'll say that this is like a 63, or this is a 60, or this is a 67, the higher the number, I think 70 is the top. And the certifying companies, and then they encapsulate them in this airtight, vacuum sealed, like hard plastic protector, and it's got their logo on it and an imprint. The Chinese are even counterfeiting that to make it look like in most cases they're caught, except the ones where they're not caught. They're counterfeiting everything. American-made products, music's being reproduced over there without regard to the copyright. I swear there's nobody in China that's paying for a video, or at least paying an American company for the video. Everything that you can imagine is being knocked off over there, and the Chinese government does nothing about it. In fact, they like it because their companies over there that are doing the knocking off are making money off of it. Well, how pathetic are we that we haven't told China to crack down on this? Don't think the Chinese can't crack down. That's all that country does is crack down. For heaven's sakes, this is a country that tells you how many children you can have. They can crack down on this. There's nothing the Chinese bosses like more than cracking down. Remember Tiananmen Square? What do you think goes on in the hinterlands of that country, the places that Americans never get to? You think that isn't one big giant crackdown with local cops? Somebody's making knockoffs, they know who it is. They could end that. But we've never done anything to the Chinese to make them want to do it. The other situation is the one that I bring up all the time. China could fix this North Korean situation. The Chinese say, look, there's only so much we can do about fat face over there. And this is apparently what they've tried to tell Trump, that look, we can't completely boss them around. It is a sovereign country. That's just crap. North Korea has no real trading partner at all other than China. If China shut off North Korea, that country would be out of money and out of capital and out of food and out of fuel, and would have no ability to even transact commerce in 3 weeks. The Chinese could fix the North Korean situation. But again, China has never had a reason to do so because we've never done anything to make them do so. We've got leverage with China, and the leverage is trade. While it's true that American businesses make a spectacular amount of money off the Chinese market, A, things get manufactured over there and sold in the United States. B, we want to sell all our stuff over there. I'm told if you're hit by a car in China, the Buick logo is automatically going to be on your thigh. Apparently that's all they drive. American companies have done very, very well in selling stuff to China. But, as well as they've done, this trading relationship is more important to China than it is to the United States. China gets more out of trading with the United States than we get out of trading with China, because we are the biggest market. We are where all the capital is. So if you start letting China know, hey, there's going to be some sanctions here, there might be a few tariffs, your steel that you've been dumping here and all of this stuff, no more of that. China's going to fight back to see if we're going to cave like we always cave. But I think Trump's goal is the same as the one with Mexico. Talk tough, put in all these tariffs and all of this stuff, and when China finally starts sending signals, hey, we got to put an end to this. We cut a deal, and the deal ends up on better terms than we started with. I happen to think that that's not only a good thing, this is a great thing. And I think if you're a free trader, you ought to think it's a great thing. As I was saying before, I don't consider myself a free trader anymore, but I'm more of a free trader than whatever the alternative is, which is, I guess, a protectionist. I think by and large the United States benefits from trade. By and large tariffs are bad for the United States. I said by and large. But I am willing to use some of these things in order to improve the overall state of our nation. I'll use another analogy. I love analogies. Football team makes a trade, which doesn't happen much. Although I swear Brian Gutekunst has made more trades in 4 months than Ted Thompson made in 10 years here. Football team makes a trade. Or they release somebody so they can make room for someone else. Often the guy you get rid of is pretty good. Packer fans are all hacked off still about Jordy Nelson. But the Packers brass made the decision that they wanted to clear a salary spot so that they could bring in Jimmy Graham. We'll see if it works out, but while that wasn't a straight trade, you see what they were trying to do. Baseball team makes a trade in the middle of a pennant. They might give up 3 prospects that could really matter to them. Is that a good thing to give up 3 prospects? No. But if the end result is that you get somebody that you won a championship with, well, then I guess it was worth it. And that's all that's going on here with
Oh, this is annoying.
He is taking aggressive moves that may be bad for some people in the interim in an attempt to get us a better deal. And all the whining and crabbing and complaining, I think here is largely dishonest. Because it's coming from people who act as though Trump's not trying to improve our trading situation.
There's like no
can't judge the process, you've got to judge the result. Instead of judging whether or not the back and forth between the United States and Mexico over the last year and a half was good or bad, judge the New Deal. Same thing with regard to China. Let this thing play itself out and see what the end result of our back and forth on trade with China is, and judge that rather than judge the way that we got there. The media, as I say, is not going to report, well, you know, China. Imagine if Obama decided to play to the left wing in his party. Remember, the left wing of the Democratic Party doesn't like these trade deals either. Play to the Bernie Sanders wing, you know what, I'm going to tear off NAFTA. Our people are getting screwed. And I'm going to go over there and talk to the Mexicans. I'm going to get a better deal. And somehow Obama got a better deal for the United States and signed that with Mexico. The media would just be, oh, what a masterstroke, what an incredible negotiator, what a great thing that Obama did. We maintain having tremendous trading relationship with Mexico, and now it's at better terms to the United States. What a great thing that Barack Obama did. And you all know that that's how it would be played. That's not the way it's going to be played with regard to Trump, even though undeniably that's what happened. We have a better trading deal for the United States, but we remain to have a deal now in place with Mexico, and Canada is going to be next. Likewise, on the conservative side, those handful of critics, and I'll throw Senator Johnson in here, that keep ripping at the president with regard to trade, rather than worry about the moves that are made back and forth in an attempt to get the deal, let's comment on the deal. No, the Mexico deal doesn't mean we're going to get a better deal with China. It doesn't mean we're going to resolve anything with the EU. It doesn't even mean we're going to resolve Canada. But I think it means that this is the direction that he's trying to move on, and all of these things that I suspect he's going to get there. Everybody knows the Donald Trump shortcomings. But let's be honest here for once. Let's start talking about his strengths. He's way better at negotiating and playing people than any president we've had in the United States recently. because he doesn't come from this political perspective. All these things that you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. Come here and say, why? Now, admittedly, Trump's stubbornness, can't do this, can't do that, can't do the other things, sometimes he takes it too far. But on this big picture stuff, he's trying to do resets in our relationship with Russia. He's trying to do resets in our relationship with NATO. He doesn't understand why we have to bankroll NATO. 60 years after World War II ended, 60 years, 70 years after, it's 73 years now this year. 73 years after World War II ended, why do we have to keep bankrolling NATO? We're going to keep having NATO, and he wants us to be involved in NATO. He wants the Europeans to start paying their fair share again. Kelly can't do it. He can't. Oh, you can't do that. You can't do. We can't step in. We got this important relationship with NATO. We got to keep doing the whole thing. You'd say why? There's a term that's used a lot. I hear police officers use it all the time. Fresh eyes. Detectives are stalled on a case. They'll ask another detective to take a look at it. I know how that happens. I like to do crossword puzzles. I only do them when I fly, but that's what I do them. No better way to kill time flying in a plane, I don't think, other than sleeping, which I am incapable of doing. When I'm stalled at a certain thing, the New York Times is still the best one for crossword puzzles. You get that Sunday New York Times, that's spectacular for a flight. It's always doable, but it never is fast. You can kill a long flight with that thing. But you get stalled at it. There's always parts that I'll get stalled at, and I'll look at it for 6 minutes and I get nowhere. I'm better off moving to another part of the puzzle. 10 minutes later, go back to the part that I was stalled at. It is amazing how the answers that didn't occur to me when I was stalled popped right into my head. I needed to freshen up my brain. I was clogged in that spot. Well, Trump is bringing fresh eyes to our international relationships. He's sizing up all of these things that have just always been done a certain way, and he has figured out that maybe there's a better way. And because of the way Trump is and the way that he talks and how bellicose he is, there's some people who just cannot accept that he's figured this stuff out. And as I said, I didn't think he'd be able to figure this stuff out. I thought he'd be a goof that was in over his head, too. My impression of Donald Trump was the moron that was on The Apprentice. You're fired. Looked like a goof. Running around on Miss Universe. The one on the Howard Stern show. That was my impression of him. That was a lot of people's impression of him. Other people had to say, watched him on all those reality shows. Oh, this is a brilliant guy. This is all just stick. They had Trump figured out long before I did. The point that I make is my impressions of Trump have now been trumped by the actual governing style of Trump. He knows what he's doing, and in some cases he's showing visionary actions. In some of these international relationships, he's right there with Reagan. It's remarkable how much he's done given the fact that he's only a year and a half into this. 1 year and 8 months. But don't expect any honesty. Oh, well, Trump's going to be an idiot. So when Trump does something that works out, you can't acknowledge it because that would mean somehow that you're wrong. You're more concerned about not admitting you're wrong than accurately describing what's going on. Now, I'll grant you that this could work on the other side. There are supporters of Trump who just refuse to, if Trump does screw something up, oh, no, that's not a screw up. That's the same problem. And I'm not going to say that you can't make the same mistake on the other side.
Trump.
Like, there is this weird thing going on today with the White House flag. You know about this, don't you, Armin? Do you know about this? Trump does not want that thing lowered to half-mast. You just know that he doesn't. First of all, he wouldn't put out a statement on McCain. He wanted to put out a tweet. So he put out the tweet, and we get a number of stories now that, okay, the White House is down. You've got to put out a statement. I don't want to. I want to put out a tweet. I don't want to go on and on about him. We know that Trump can't stand McCain. I face this all the time when someone dies locally. There's a prominent person that I've, criticized over the years and they die. I just don't say anything on the show. I'm not going to come out and lie and claim that the person was a great person, but I'm not going to sit here and rip him when he's dead. I'm not talking about some international figure or anything, but, just suppose there's some local politician or whatever, and I didn't think much of the person, or as a local celebrity or personality, and they die. If I got nothing good to say, I'm not going to say anything. Just talk about other things that day. Well, I'm not going to come on and say, oh, this is a great person if I didn't think that the person was, so I just keep my mouth shut. Trump didn't like McCain. McCain didn't like Trump. I think Trump started it. This is the bad side of Trump. His comments about McCain were gratuitous. He didn't have to say that he's not a hero. So he started it, but they don't like each other.
Well, McCain's dead now, so what doesn't, I mean...
So Trump puts out the tweet and not the statement. And this morning, the White House flag is flying... There it is. They're not... Again, they're showing the thing I'm talking about on my monitor. The White House flag was flying right at the top at full mast. The Capitol flag and all the other flags were at half-mast to McCain. The media got onto this, and they were all reporting the fact that the flag was at full mast. Well, it's down to half-mast this afternoon. Probably the president figured out this is not a winning issue for me. I'll bring it down to half-mast. I've made my point. And he's made his point. His point is everybody knows he doesn't. He doesn't want that flag at half-mast, but he'll do it anyway to get y'all to shut up. But he got his point out there. That he thinks McCain was a pompous blowhard. And that's that. McCain was a pompous blowhard. But I also think, and I'm going to do a segment on McCain, and I'm going to do that here in the next moment. There's another Trump story that I want to get to as well. As I said, we're going to talk about the arena in today's program. And I have an interesting local story about a local politician who is accused of, who's got a restraining order slapped on him by a woman who was involved in a political campaign. That story's out there. A few other things as well. I want to remind you, we've got the iHeartRadio Music Festival Flyaway Contest texting words 4 and a little after 5 and a little after. It's now 3:42. News Talk 1130 WISN.
It's time for Rapid Traffic. A crash just cleared out of the way 894.
Do you have a basement?
I have a basement.
I don't know what Wauwatosa has over there.
Yes,
we have a relationship.
We have
with
basements.
Wauwatosa.
Yes.
Do you?
Yes.
Everywhere, even by the Parkway and all that?
I had a basement in all 3 of my Wauwatosa homes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess most people would
We're-
have basements.
We're pretty old school here.
Yeah. Have you gone into it
Yeah?
to see if is there water?
No.
Because I'm just hearing from people there's water all over southeastern Wisconsin in basements.
Yeah, I would imagine so. There's a lot
The
of...
problem is that we had the big rains of a week ago, and that ground is still wet, and there's still groundwater in there, and there's only so much the drain tiles and some pumps can take up. The other thing that happens is, when power goes out, the sump pumps don't operate unless you have a generator, in which case I believe that the sump pump can work off of the generator. Sure. But the water in the basement thing, so I mean, my approach is I don't want to go down there. I'm just I'm gonna wait like 3 days. Because first of all, you're not gonna get anybody to come over, and it's supposed to rain again tonight. Right. You're not gonna get anybody to come over. They're so backed up forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. There's nothing there is to do. I just don't want to know. But no, it's a common thing.
Oh, absolutely. And, up in Ozaukee County, where we're still dealing with flooding, that's obviously ground zero for all of the worst of it.
Were you up? How late did you stay up last night?
10:30.
Yeah,
maybe?
it's like 11:30. John, it was raining so hard and so long. It was just pouring and pouring. And it was that, it's not like that kind of, there was something going on that was weird yesterday. It's real foggy along the lake all day. So there was a little bit of prevailing wind coming off the east, and that had this moisture in the air. Anyway, when the storm systems came in from the southwest, they sat. I was watching the radar all night. These things were roaring across the state up from kind of coming up. It's that same path that we've had all year. This one's hitting on our, like St. Louis through Illinois, that state line and all of it. It's roaring, roaring, roaring. And then when it got close to the lakefront, Ozaukee County, Milwaukee County, Racine County, these things just stalled. And there must have been something with the air system that was there that kind of held it up before it just moved along like the other ones. So it wasn't like a thunderstorm where it rains for hard for like 9 or 10 minutes. It just kept pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. Wouldn't stop, which is, I guess, the same thing that happened in Madison a week ago when they got the 13 inches.
West of Madison there, which they're still dealing with.
By the way, do you know that Walker did some sandbagging over the weekend? Do you believe that the lefties showed up to protest? That's a sandbagging. This is a classic case of how liberals do not understand how stupid they look. You know how they could have made themselves look great?
By going out and helping.
Go help, take Walker's photo op from him. Here we are, lefties. We're doing the same thing to help instead. There's Walker. And I admit the governor's doing it for the purposes of drawing attention, and it makes him look good to do the sandbagging and all of that stuff.
But there you go. There they are.
But there they are, being the lazy bums that they always are, doing no work whatsoever, walking around yelling and screaming and protesting. If they had any, this is just proof that they have no brains. If they had any brains, they would have gone out there and made sure they stayed after Walker left. And then they could say, yeah, Walker's going off and campaigning. We lefties were going to say, lefties, that would mean that the lefty would actually have to do actual work rather than count on somebody else to do everything for them.
If they'd have been really clever, they would have known when he was going to be there and doing it. They would have beat him to it.
Beat him to it. Show there in the first. Oh, yeah, nice, but you just show up, Scott. Yeah, show up here. Yeah, but they literally don't have that.
No.
We conservatives do benefit greatly from how stupid Wisconsin liberals are. And never, I mean, it's like when they protested the Special Olympics ceremony during Act 10. They just have no grasp that their protests actually drive people over to the other side. All right, now keep going in traffic.
So the flooding in Ozaukee County still includes a lane of I-43 north and southbound, just south of Highway 60. It's around Falls Road. That's causing heavy delays, obviously, in both directions as you squeeze into the left lanes that are open there. And then Highway 33 is closed between County Highway I and Decorah Woods Boulevard, so they're diverting you around that. A crash just cleared off of the northbound side of the bypass coming out of the Hale interchange. You'll still find it slow, though, from 68th Street out through the Hale. From the Lynch Buick GMC of West Bend Total Traffic Center, I'm John Wyatt, News Talk 1130 WISN.
All programs on News Talk 1130 WISN are broadcast through the NX Wealth Management Studios. NX Wealth Management. Know the difference.
News Talk 1130 WISN, Mark Bellin, late afternoon show. I don't think the Brewers pitching is good enough to make the playoffs, but I think the Brewers are going to make the playoffs. I've watched sports long enough to know that there are some teams that just have the kind of season in which the stars are aligned right or something, where you just get enough breaks. I still remember the year that the Cubs finally broke through in, is it 84? When they finally won whatever they called the National League, whatever, might have only had two divisions then. They were, I think the National League East, was it 83 or 84? I think it was 84 that the Cubs wanted in. I was living in Springfield, Illinois at the time, and this is before there was a lot of cable and everything. The Cubs were on WGN, which we had on our cable, so I saw the Cubs every day. It was the only sports I could watch, and there was a game early in the season. It was like the bases were loaded with one out of the ninth inning, and Lee Smith was pitching for the Cubs, and the batter for the other team hits a line drive, just a rocket. Would you believe that thing deflects off of Smith's glove? It goes over to the shortstop, who grabs the ball. Forget who was playing shortstop. Grabs the ball and doubles a guy off at first. And I said right then and there, this is the Cubs here. I just get that game Friday night that the Brewers won against Pittsburgh. All season, the entire season, no team has come down from multiple runs in extra innings and won. I find that shocking. I can't believe that it didn't happen before Friday night. And explaining that again, of course, this can only happen with the home team because the visiting team falls behind in extra innings, the game is over. All year, when a team fell behind by multiple runs and the game was already in extra innings, they had lost. In fact, it was 59-0. The last time it happened was last year in August, and the Brewers themselves have not done it since 1992. The Brewers have not come back from multiple runs and extra innings and won since 1992. What? It's just impossible. I can't believe that it's done. No, it's a weird thing. It can only happen at home because you can't come from behind and win on the road in extra innings, because when the home team scores in extra innings and takes the lead, that ends the game and you don't get to bat again. So only the home team is capable of doing it. And multiple runs would be two or more, and obviously you're not going to come back from 5 or 6 back or anything. But two or more. First time the Brewers had done it since 1992, and there are so many goofball things that had to happen in that game. There were 2 outs and 2 men on in the bottom of the 15th inning. The Brewers were down by 2 runs, and they had no pinch hitters left. So Lyles had a bat. As I understand it, I don't think this made the media, but as I understand it, Ulysses Chassin would have pinch hit, who is probably the Brewers' best hitting pitcher, but he was pitching the following day, Saturday, and they had already sent him home. Who knows? Would have known they would have needed a pitch hit, a pinch hit. Also, they didn't want to pinch hit for Lyles because he was the last reliever they had in the bullpen, and even if they had scored, they didn't want to use a starting pitcher to come in and have to pitch in the 16th inning. So they essentially gave up and had Lyles bat. Believe the Pittsburgh pitcher walked him. Lyles batted like 3 times all year. And that's what set up Kratz to hit that goofy ground ball that should have been an easy out. He just happened to hit the ball where nobody was standing. He scores 2 runs to tie the game, and then Arcia drove in the winning run. You start winning games like that, I'm sorry. It's just a sign that it's your year. And they've had so many like this. The game in which Broxton jumped 6 feet over the fence and pulled that ball in. There have been so many wins the Brewers have had this year in which they just should not have won. It has me kind of thinking that maybe, they came up a game short last year and making the wild card, and maybe this is going to be it. Here's the weather for you. I don't want to hear the word rain in here. I just don't want to see it. Let's see what it says. Tonight, chance of storms, some may be strong. In fact, we might get another couple of inches of rain. Believe it or not, that's tonight and tomorrow. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy. Storms are likely most in the morning and then coming back in the evening. This is going to bring in much cooler air. The warmer air is going to end. So tonight's low is 75. That's as far out it's going to drop. Tomorrow's high is 87. But then after these storms move in, big drop in temperatures down to 64 tomorrow night. Wednesday, after the rain moves out, partly sunny and cool. Temperatures will stay in the 60s. Thursday, mostly sunny, high 70. Friday, partly sunny, high 76. Starts to warm up again for the Labor Day weekend. Saturday, mostly cloudy, chance for thunderstorms, high around 80 degrees. All right, let's talk about John McCain. I don't think you can make this a black or a white situation if you're going to honestly analyze McCain. John McCain was an incredible hero. And I disagree with Trump when he said he's not a hero. Given who McCain was, he could have gotten a better assignment. Even if he was going to go to Vietnam, he could have gotten a better assignment than he did. He chose to serve at a time that a lot of people, and, the draft ended before I ever got old enough to have to serve, but there were all sorts of people that come up with ways, college, deferments, and all this stuff, to get out of serving in Vietnam. McCain, whose father was an admiral, also named John McCain, probably could have figured out a way not to serve, and even if he did serve, or stay in the United States and be given some sort of muckety-muck job, or even if going to Vietnam, be put in a situation where he wouldn't be in harm's way. He didn't play any of those cards. When he was a POW, it was widely reported the amount of torture that he received. That isn't being made up, he got it. And a lot of other POWs had it there as well. It has been widely reported that McCain had the opportunity to be released, given who his father was, and he chose not to do it. Now, that'd be kind of a bodacious move to leave when your buddies are still stuck in Hanoi Hilton, but he didn't do it. And to pretend that part of the McCain thing isn't there, I think is just dishonest. And even people who don't like John McCain ought to acknowledge that. John McCain, the politician, his record is mixed. There are some issues in which I think McCain has been right on. He has been a strong supporter of a strong American foreign policy, and I have that position as well. My problem with McCain is the same problem that a lot of conservatives have with him. That he has allowed his unbelievably huge ego to lead him to try to suck up to the media. He was nothing but an 8-year pain in the butt to second President Bush, to George W. Bush. Because McCain wanted to be the president.
Oh,
and
that's
Bush
the
beat
city.
him.
Okay, dumb. Yeah.
And he would take the liberal side on virtually everything, which made him the darling of the media. Much to his shock, when McCain became the nominee in 2008, his buddies in the media abandoned him, and they immediately lit him up because he was trying to stop the beloved Barack Obama from becoming president. I think that McCain is a guy who liked to pose on issues that would earn him the respect of the Washington crowd. He was a swamp-like character who was, when I say swamp, I mean the Washington swamp. He wanted to be part of that institution and establishment. And I think he sometimes sacrificed conservative principles in order to keep that revered status as, the Republican that everybody likes. Everybody in the media likes and that the establishment likes. On the other hand, his personal heroism, I think, to pretend that it didn't happen would be wrong. The one thing that I think McCain never accepted was how there are millions of American conservatives like myself who were never fans of McCain, but you know what? When he ran in 08, we got behind him. And this was the same criticism that I offered of Republicans who wouldn't get behind Trump in 16. I got behind him because I thought John McCain would be a much better president than Barack Obama, who I think was advertising his socialism even then. It spent its whole life hanging around as a radical. We knew all about Bill Ayers, and we knew all about the miserable church the Jeremiah Wright church that he hung in. We knew about the people that he palled around with in Chicago, the whole thing. And I thought that John McCain would be a better alternative. And I don't think that McCain ever fully appreciated the fact that a lot of the conservatives who were never big fans of him aggressively backed and supported him when he was the nominee. And he himself showed the same kind of hang-up when they were very distant toward Trump because they didn't like Trump.
Bad delusion for a second there.
Anyway, he's a very large figure in American politics.
Oh yeah, I gotta go back.
Probably one of the biggest Republican deals of our time, who did not become president of the United States. For the people, though, who want to pass judgment on how his own personal courage and so forth, I don't see how you can do that. I think McCain was undeniably heroic in how he served and what he put up with, what he tolerated. In terms of his time in government, as I said, I think he was right on some issues, wrong on others. He's good at court appointments. He's good on a lot of social issues. There are a lot of issues John McCain was right about. He just kind of relished that role of being the pain in the butt and the thorn in the side of conservatives at a time that sometimes he could have been a lot more helpful. But as I say, he was a major figure in American government and in the last 50 years, one of the most important people in American government who did not get to be president. I'm going to give you, right coming out of the break after this break, we're going to give you the iHeartRadio Music Festival Flyaway Contest text in words, so don't go away. 402 News Talk 1130 WISN.
If you have a smart speaker, listening to WISN has never been easier. Just tell Alexa, Google Home, or Siri on HomePod to play 1130 WISN on iHeartRadio. Then sit back and enjoy the extras.
News Talk 1130 WISN. Mark Felling, late afternoon show. You heard the promo for the iHeartRadio Music Festival Flyaway Contest. Now, here's the text-in word for this hour. The word is casino. Casino. C-A-S-I-N-O. C-A-S-I-N-O. Casino. You have all the way to 5 o'clock to text that to 200-200. We had another WISN listener winner on the program on Friday afternoon when Jerry Bott was sitting in for me. We're up to 8 on my show, 16 on the station altogether. I might be off on those numbers, but I don't think I am. I think I'm right. Casino. Text that to 200-200. The prize, of course, is round-trip airfare to Las Vegas, 2 nights hotel, ground transportation, and tickets to the iHeartRadio Music Festival both nights. It's September 21st and 22nd. If you enter the contest, you get a text confirming entry plus iHeartRadio info. Standard data and message rates apply. Now, this story is developing yesterday and today. We have yet another case of a bombshell.
Oh my God, it's still there. It's still there.
Apart.
Wow.
Lanny Davis, the Clinton hack who is currently representing Michael Cohen, is now backpedaling and walking back the statements that he has been making repeatedly on television, suggesting that Cohen had knowledge about a number of meetings that occurred between Trump people and the Russians, including the Don Jr. meeting at Trump Tower. Lanny Davis has said this again and again and again. Lanny Davis now, over the weekend, came out and acknowledged that maybe he didn't know what he was talking about. Now, you're not going to see a lot of coverage of that in the mainstream media where they point out that these stories that got a lot of attention over the last 2 weeks are all essentially crap, and the guy who is making the big shot statements is now backing off of them. Here's what's going on. Lanny Davis hasn't practiced actual law in decades. He's been a political operative. And he's been functioning here as a political operative and working for Michael Cohen, going out there and ripping Trump. I think it has dawned on him, or someone has told him, look, you're representing someone in a criminal case. You can't just go out there and lie. Particularly if Michael Cohen has an agreement now with the prosecutors for full cooperation. That agreement requires truthfulness. Every plea deal I've ever said where you have a cooperating witness, the deal falls apart if the person isn't 100% honest about all details, and that means his lawyer has to be 100% honest. Lanny Davis probably didn't even know. He's just running around as a Clinton hack that he was, making up one thing after another about Trump and Cohen and the whole thing, and it's now dawned on him, hey, if you're going to call yourself a lawyer for a person who is in the middle of an ongoing criminal prosecution, you can't just run around and go on television and start telling a pack of lies about the case that your client is involved in.
Continuing that to him would be
so
more
Lanny
beneficial
Davis walked the whole thing back.
I just want to do something else.
Here's a statement. He issued this morning.
Oh, I gotta get a backpack too. Shit.
I take the responsibility for not communicating more clearly my uncertainty. I regret the error. He told the Washington Post that he should have been more clear, that he could not independently confirm what happened. In other words, Davis is now saying he doesn't really know anything. This is after he was saying that Michael Cohen told him that he had personal knowledge that Trump was aware of all of these meetings before they occurred. When you read these words from Davis, could not independently confirm what happened. In other words, I have no idea if this is true or not. Meaning he never should have even said it. The media again and again and I can't, I get that if Michael Cohen's lawyer, Lanny Davis, even though he's somebody you can't believe given his Clinton background, says these things, you probably have to report it. But he was out there talking out of his rear end in an attempt to embarrass Trump, and he's now got to pull the whole thing back. Once again, another story, oh, Trump knew about all these, falls apart. These stories about Trump's involvement in any kind of activity involving the Russians in 2016, every single one of them that's ever been reported has fallen apart. Even if Trump did have knowledge of some of those meetings, I have a very hard time believing that he would have told Michael Cohen, because it sure seemed to me that he kept Michael Cohen excited. Michael Cohen for Trump did things like Stormy Daniels. Those were the things that he was used for. I don't think he would have been used for anything involving Russia anyway, or what was... So Lanny Davis pulls all of this back. And yet another bombshell that's, oh, Trump, the Russians, Trump knew about all of these meetings, Michael Cohen's going to tell the prosecutors all this. And here's, again, I'm past time here, but so let me get brief. Why is Lanny Davis pulling it back now? A, I think he realizes he has to be on the same page as his client. Michael Cohen is now out there giving Mueller's team everything he has. That's part of his plea deal. And Michael Cohen has absolutely nothing to give on whether or not Trump knew about those meetings. So given the fact that, on Mueller's team, okay, Cohen, give us the proof that you have that Trump knew about these meetings. Cohen, I don't have any. So now, since Cohen, the client, doesn't have any, that means publicly Lanny Davis has to walk it back as well, because his client doesn't have any of this proof whatsoever. In other words, Lanny Davis is just throwing this stuff out to try to put the fear of God into Donald Trump. And you wonder why Donald Trump has never seemed all that bothered by anything that Cohen had to say, and why Trump didn't pardon Cohen weeks ago. I think it's because Trump knows that Michael Cohen doesn't have anything on him with regard to the Russian thing. Now, whether he has anything on him with regard to Trump business dealings and the whole Stormy Daniels thing, again, Trump's thing on Stormy Daniels, I paid her with my own money. I'm allowed to do that. I didn't use campaign funds. It's my money. If I want to give money to a woman to keep her mouth shut, I have a right to give money to a woman to keep her mouth shut, in the same way that any other American has a right to give money to a woman to keep her mouth shut. Armin dates somebody, then want anybody to find out about it, and he says, here's $500, don't tell anybody about it. You have every legal right to do that deal. You may be obnoxious, but you have every legal right to do it. Did Trump use campaign funds to do it? Trump said no. Trump said it was my own money. I can do whatever it is that I want. Every single time the media and the left think that they become within a whisker of seeing Donald Trump coming down on one of these things, the story always falls apart despite their breathless reporting of the details leading up to that point. And that is because they are guilty of the thing that people are guilty of all the time, that I talk about all the time, and that is you are likelier to believe something is true if you want it to be true. They so desperately want to believe that the goods are there on Donald Trump that they jump to, and they lack the skepticism that ought to be demonstrated on stories like this. 415 News Talk, 1130 WISM.
It's time for Rapid Traffic.
I-94 westbound slow from the Marquette interchange out past Miller Park and Highway 100 to the county line. 19 minutes downtown to Moreland Road. Looking slow on westbound 894 between 27th Street and about 60th Street. Delays left over from an earlier crash there. 10 minutes to get from the Mitchell interchange over to the Hale interchange. It's slow southbound I-41 from Mayfair Road down past Watertown Plank Road. And you've got flooding that continues to keep one lane blocked in each direction of I-43 in the Grafton area, just south of Highway 60, right around Falls Road. Now, on the northbound side, those delays are growing rather lengthy, all the way from near Mequon Road up to Highway 60, and then on the southbound side, they begin before 60 past Falls Road, so you might want to head 4 alternate routes. Port Washington Road filling in pretty quickly as well. From the Lynch Buick GMC of West Bend Total Traffic Center, I'm John Wyatt, News Talk 1130 WISM.
Standing up for Milwaukee, this is the Mark Belling Late Afternoon Show on News Talk 1130 WISN. The following story is exclusive to my program. Others may be picking up on portions of it. I'm going to share with you what I know. It's one of those types of stories. It involves an allegation that an employee of the Randy Bryce for Congress congressional campaign has been the victim of harassment and stalking from a Kenosha County Democrat. There is no indication that anyone involved with the Bryce campaign itself was doing the inappropriate behavior. Here's the information that I have. A woman who works for Bryce's campaign, and Bryce is the Democratic candidate for Congress in the 1st Congressional District, and we always like to remind people which district that is. That's the old Paul Ryan district. Ryan not running for re-election. Bryce is the Democrat running. That's southern Milwaukee County, Racine, Kenosha counties, southern Waukesha, Walworth County, and a portion of Rock. A little couple of chunks of little others in there too. But that's the district. Bryce is the extremely well-funded Democrat who's being backed with a fortune in liberal money to try to see if the Democrats can't steal that seat. Anyway, the allegation involved comes from a woman who works for Bryce's campaign. She has sought and has received from Kenosha County courts a restraining order against a member of the Kenosha County Board who's a local Democratic activist. The woman met the guy, his name is Joe Cardinale, at a meeting involving Bryce's campaign. Cardinale's a local Democrat. The woman involved works for Bryce's campaign. I have made the decision not to name the woman here, given the fact that she was granted the restraining order on a temporary basis. It's a temporary restraining order that she has received. There are developments that occurred in the case this afternoon that I'll share with you in a moment. I'm also going to share with you the reaction and the denial here from Joe Cardinale, the Kenosha County board member. A little bit of background, and then I'm going to share with you the complaint that was made by the woman. Cardinale was just named to the county board in Kenosha County last week. He's relatively young. He's been a member of the village board in Summers. Summers is in Kenosha County, and weirdly, I was driving through Summers this past weekend. Summers is like just to the west of the city of Kenosha. Kind of near it runs like both, I think it's on both sides of I-94, it doesn't really matter, but kind of, Summers is one of those like rural communities of town that, as I say, is west of the city of Kenosha. It's in Kenosha County. That's where he's from, and he's been an official there, and he has just been named to the Kenosha County Board, and he's been involved in local Democratic politics in Kenosha County. By perhaps coincidence, perhaps not, he was named to the county board the very same day last week that this complaint was filed. A Kenosha County judge has issued a temporary restraining order on the harassment petition request that was made by the woman involved in the case. I'm going to read from her statement of facts. And again, this doesn't mean it's true. This is the sworn statement that she gives, and the statement is sworn. She writes, Joe Cardinelli is an acquaintance of mine that I met at a monthly meeting in Kenosha about 8 months ago. I work for a campaign in which the candidate is a member of the party in which Joe sits on the county board of. I am also a member of the party. Since meeting, Joe has attempted to take me out to places for drinks and to engage in sexual behavior. After 6 months of intimidating me with constant reminders that he has, quote, power in the community, I asked him not to contact me any longer. He then began instructing, quote, others in the party to contact my superiors in the campaign, my job, and tell them lies and untruths about me, that I am a drug addict and an alcoholic, of which I am not. Now, I'm going to interject here. This is me and not the complaint. Again, the campaign she's referring to is Bryce's campaign. So she's alleging that Cardinelli, the county board member, contacted people in Bryce's campaign and started lying about her. The complaint continues. He began to contact my employer himself. This is me now. It is unclear to me whether or not she means Bryce or just a supervisor in the campaign. Back to the complaint. He today sent me a hostile text message stating that he has been watching me and will continue to do so until I lose my job. He repeatedly calls, texts, and leaves voicemails on my phone. He approaches and confronts me at events. I have several witnesses to all of these actions. The calls and text messages come at all hours of the day and night. There could be 10 to 20 calls and texts at a time. A text I received stated that you need to, and then a vulgar term, I guess which one it is, you need to bleep a young Democrat to even things out. I believe he said it because he had just learned that my new boyfriend is 63 years old. I am, and she lists her age. I'm not going to reveal it, but I'll broadly tell you that it's in the 40s. When are you free to get together one night this week? Maybe even go over things at the office. And, P.S., thinking about you in that dress has me, like, and then he has a picture of an object. I never responded to sexual innuendo, but I tried to be polite. He is now calling my boss, making unproven and unsubstantiated claims that I am a drug addict, cocaine, and an alcoholic. He has stated that he and others are watching me and assuring me that I will not have my job much longer. Again, he is my alderman in Summers, and he believes he has real influence over people that I work for. Now, that's the complaint. I contacted Cardinelli, and he emailed me a response. And in fairness to Cardinelli, I will read his response verbatim. Here is my statement, Mark. A very serious allegation of harassment has been levied against me by someone via restraining order. While everyone has the right to seek protection, I and those closest to me know these charges are simply not true. I won't get into any details until my attorney deems appropriate. However, I will say that I am able to hold my head high because of the hard evidence that proves my complete innocence. Such evidence includes phone records and text messages, all of which I plan to make public when once again my attorney deems appropriate. I wish to do that to further prove my innocence and gain any potential trust law expect. It pains me to not be able to fully disclose evidence and clear my name this second, but patience in the legal system is needed here. I am comforted by the fact that I have the truth and evidence on my side. I also know that those truly in the know of this matter can testify to this fact. This morning, my attorney and I agreed with the accuser to postpone any and all hearings on this matter until November, for reasons I cannot disclose at this time, after which the accusation levied against me will be legally and officially dropped and dismissed in the court of law as it should be. I look forward to continuing to serve my community and will go forward doing such. While obviously a difficult time, the fact that so many men and women have reached out in support and to express their strong belief that nothing in the allegations could be even remotely true has lifted my spirits and truly humbled and touched me. Any further information or comments should be directed to my attorney at this time until further notice. Thank you for your understanding, continued support. Now, that same statement was posted by Cardinelli on his Facebook page, although I believe he's taken it down. So he's denying. So what you have here is an allegation by a woman who's working for Randy Bryce's campaign that she met this guy Cardinelli, who is now a member of the Kenosha County Board in the context of the campaign, that he's been harassing and stalking her and texting her and calling and asking her out, and she's again showed no interest and has tried to make this clear, and it's gone on for months, and finally she sought a restraining order, which she was granted in the form of a temporary restraining order. A temporary restraining order is just that. It's granted by a judge until a hearing can be held on a full restraining order. Today, and this was referenced in the email from Cardinelli and backed up by the court file, there was an agreement made on the record in the court not to hold a full hearing on this until after the November election. Clearly, there's a desire to not have this story be discussed in Kenosha County circles while the Randy Bryce campaign is still going on. So both sides agreed that there'd be a hearing on the woman's request for a permanent restraining order, and they're going to do it after the November election. The woman does still work for Bryce's campaign. I have been unable to reach the Randy Bryce campaign to be able to speak to Bryce about whether or not he has any knowledge of this conduct or behavior allegedly committed by Cardinelli. The woman claims in her complaint that Cardinelli has contacted her boss on the campaign. Again, it is not clear to me whether or not that's a reference to just, say, a campaign manager or someone of that, or if it's Randy Bryce himself. Randy Bryce himself is, of course, all sorts of personal baggage dealing with interpersonal relationships forever and ever and ever. I have linked all of this information up on Belling.com, including a copy of the harassment complaint that was made against Cardinelli. We have redacted the name of the woman involved in the case, although I am told that everybody in Kenosha County Democratic circles, or at least a lot of people, sort of know about this case and know what's going on with regard to this. In other words, you know people and they hear that this is one of the things that's going on. As I said, Cardinelli is relatively young. He's in his early 20s. He was just appointed to the county board in Kenosha County by the board itself last week. A member of the county board, Greg Retzloff, died apparently several weeks ago, and there therefore is a vacancy on the board, and the board itself put Cardinelli on the board. As I said, he's been involved in politics in Summers and is an active member of the Democratic Party in Kenosha County. And now there's this allegation again coming from another Democrat, a woman, who says that Cardinelli will not take no for an answer, that he's sent her crude stuff, and she keeps saying no, and he just won't let it alone. And this has finally resulted in her, after many months of seeking the restraining order, Cardinelli in this statement, without getting into any specifics, denies everything and says when they have a full hearing, they'll be able to prove it. In the meantime, both sides have agreed not to hold that hearing until after the election. This is a political season, and the woman involved is an employee of the Randy Bryce campaign. Now, there's been baggage and stuff like this that has gone on in Republican circles as well. I'm not going to revisit all of the history, but there was a situation involving somebody who was working for Senator Johnson who alleged that she was the victim of inappropriate behavior by a prominent local Republican political official. This goes back a number of years. That story was aired out. There was a criminal complaint. There was a conviction. It's been dealt with. Cardinelli is not the most important person in the world. He's only a member of the county board, but that is an elected office, even though he was only appointed to it. The woman involved did choose to seek a restraining order, which is a legal action in a public matter, and it occurred in open court. And the document that she files is a public record because it's filed with the court itself. I've, as I said, made the decision here in posting it that we redacted the name of the woman involved, and I didn't use her name, given the fact that the restraining order was granted on a temporary basis. Whether her name should be put out there or not, I don't know, but it's not impossible for anyone who wanted to go through legal records to be able to obtain it, I wouldn't think. Anyway, that's the story. I don't know how it's going to be handled by the newspaper down there in Kenosha, if at all. I don't know. Randy Bryce, as I say, is running for Congress, and Whether or not he's been supportive of the alleged victim here or not, again, I don't have any information on that. I've attempted to reach the Bryce campaign and have not been able to do so. 441 News Talk 1130 WISN.
It's time for Rapid Traffic.
Getting reports that 43 northbound in Ozaukee County now is closed at County Highway C Pioneer Road because of the flooding just north of there. They'd had a lane closed in both directions. Now they have apparently decided to close the northbound lanes entirely. Backups begin before Mequon Road.
Is there a dip in the road there, or where's the water coming from?
Yeah, I assume there's some kind of a low spot there that's got water running across the roadway. So with the backup, you've got delays now.
So it's closed altogether?
Yes, at Highway C.
43 is?
That's what I said, yeah.
Wow. Well, I know, I'm re-emphasizing that. That's a big deal. That means you got to get off. I mean...
You do. In fact, don't wait until the Highway C closure because there's just a huge line of cars waiting to use that exit. So you want to head for alternates as soon as possible, jumping off at Mequon Road or even back at the Port Washington Road exit just south of
So C is the one right north of Mequon Road? Or not?
It would be the next exit north.
Exit north.
Road. Yeah.
In Mequon Road, and then farther north, C is the first one, and that's where the freeway is closed because of the flooding. So your last chance to get off would be C itself.
Yeah, but don't.
The last chance before that would be Mequon Road, or even earlier than that.
Right.
I'm guessing that means Port Road or whatever is left is.
Yeah, Port's going to be packed in, but Green Bay is not a bad choice. You know, even heading as far west as Cedarburg Road.
Well, this is only northbound, they said.
Northbound is the only one closed. Southbound, they do have a lane closed, so
it's down to one lane.
But the delay is not nearly as bad. Obviously, the volume not that heavy going that direction. 94 westbound heavy out of the Marquette interchange and then again approaching the county line. It's 22 minutes downtown to Moreland Road, and southbound I-41 heavy from Burleigh through the Zoo, 15 Good Hope Road to I-94. From the Lynch Buick GMC of West Bend Total Traffic Center, I'm John Wyatt, News Talk 1130 WISN.
All programs on News Talk 1130 WISN are broadcast through the Annex Wealth Management Studios. Annex Wealth Management. Know the difference.
News Talk 1130 WISN. Mark Belling, late afternoon show. We've got another chance to win the Las Vegas trip by iHeartRadio Music Festival Flyway Contest. Next day word 5 o'clock or a little bit after. Here's the weather, and there's rain back in the forecast, believe it or not. Chance of storms, some may be strong tonight, dropping only into the mid-70s, 75. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy. Storms are likely mostly in the morning. High of 87. Storms coming back tomorrow night and continuing into Wednesday morning, and a big cool down tomorrow night and into Wednesday. Tomorrow night's low 64. Wednesday's high only 69. After the storms finally end, Wednesday morning, partly sunny skies. Mostly sunny for Thursday, high 70. Friday, partly sunny, high 76. The Harley event, the first events start occurring, or scheduled events start occurring Wednesday. People can come in and do whatever they want, and local Harley riders can tool around whenever they feel like tooling around. But Wednesday is the kind of official first events that are going on, continuing all the way to the Labor Day weekend. And there are events scattered. There's block parties and special events. There's Veterans Park. There's a Brady Street. There's a bunch of things, this, that, and the other thing. The big concert, the highlight concert, is the Lady Antebellum Darius Rucker concert down at the Summerfest grounds. I'm going to move into a series of stories here that I'm going to connect because I want to make a couple of points that I think are in common. But first, there's an explosive
I do get more
development
experience
here
if I'm grouped.
regarding to the
a
whole
little bit,
problem
not too
in
much,
the Roman
like
Catholic
10%
Church,
more.
sexual abuse, and so on. A Catholic
I think it'd be
cardinal,
the opposite, though.
that's as high as you can get without being the Pope. It's only about 150 of them. A Roman Catholic cardinal is now publicly stating that Pope Francis was aware of the allegations against the disgraced former Cardinal of Washington, D.C., McCarrick, because this cardinal, told the Pope about it. Despite this, the Pope softened sanctions that had been placed against McCarrick by the Pope's predecessor, Pope Benedict. Now, the background for those of you who have not been following this, McCarrick has been a prominent leader in the Catholic Church in the United States for many years, and his most recent post was the Cardinal and therefore Archbishop of the Washington, D.C. Diocese. He was also someone who had taken a lead role in dealing with all of the American cases of sex abuse. He was removed from his position after widespread allegations of inappropriate conduct by him, McCarrick, for decades. It has since been reported that it has been notorious that when McCarrick would come and visit in a community, he would want to meet young seminarians, that he had a home where young seminarians would often sleep over. There are priests who have said that the behavior of McCarrick has gone on for, as I said, decades. McCarrick has since been removed from his post in Washington, D.C. The new question is whether or not the cardinal who succeeded McCarrick, Donald Wuerl, knew about any of this stuff. This is now the first time that Pope Francis's name has been brought into the story. The allegation has been made by Carlo Maria Vigano. He's the former Vatican envoy to the United States. Remember, Vatican City is actually a nation. So the Vatican has an envoy, kind of like an ambassador, to the United States. That's Cardinal Vigano, Cardinal Carlo Maria Vigano. That's who's making the allegation. Vigano is publicly claiming that he told, in 2013, Pope Francis about this problem here in the United States of Cardinal Theodore McCarrick. The Pope has said he knew nothing of the allegations against McCarrick. Cardinal Vigano says that's not true. I know it's not true because I'm the one who told him. And Cardinal Vigano says, beyond that, I not only told Pope Francis, but rather than do anything about it, the sanctions that were put in place against McCarrick by Pope Benedict were eased. Pope Benedict had put in place on McCarrick sanctions that essentially confined him to a life of prayer and penance. That's the status that he's since been removed to, but in the interim, Pope Francis softened those up and allowed him to be more active. So you now have this allegation that people in the Roman Catholic Church were looking the other way. You can call it covering up, or you can call it look the other way, or just not do anything about the problem. It's gone all the way to the top with the allegation now being made about Pope Francis. Pope Francis has not offered a comment on this. There are many people who wonder whether or not the Pope is going to have to step down if indeed he was aware of this behavior with regard to McCarrick. Well, the stories here about higher-ups in the Catholic Church looking the other way and looking the other way and looking the other way, this is not a new story. The McCarrick story is a new development along with the Pennsylvania grand jury report that detailed terrible behavior that occurred some time ago by a number of priests and leaders within the Catholic Church in Pennsylvania. You can go back to the problems that we had here in the Milwaukee Diocese and so on, and it's just apparent to me why all of this happened. First of all, you had terrible behavior by individual priests that the church itself was unwilling to publicly condemn or go after. And I know why. Everybody knows why. They decided to accept this teaching of mercy and forgiveness. And I think that that was a terribly bad decision. And I think that it's obvious that everybody concludes that it was now a terribly bad decision. Well, go over here somewhere else and God will forgive you, you have to not do this again, etc. Well, the problem with that is that it didn't understand that this type of behavior is behavior that people often repeat again and again and again and again and again. The notion of forgiving, and the Catholic Church is premised on forgiveness. People confess their sins, people who do terrible things, individuals are taught that they're supposed to forgive. The problem with that notion of forgiveness is there still has to be consequences if you are an institution in which your people are involved with others. You can forgive someone, but that doesn't mean that you don't take action against them to protect others. If somebody smacks me in the face, I may say I forgive him, but I'm not going to tell him I'm not going to let somebody else that I know walk right up to the guy who might smack him in the face. And I think that this has been the mistake that they have made all along, and I suspect that Pope Francis, when he was told about McCarrick, had the same reaction. Well, that was years ago. Let's hope that, for heaven's sakes, that now in 2013, after all these stories, he's cleaned up his act. You know, let's Let's move forward with this. And this is the thing that has angered so many people, that they didn't take a different action. Our standards have changed in many things. We are judging people by the standards of today for the behaviors and the decisions that they made in the past. The other thing that's overhanging all of this is, and I think Pope Francis seems to be guilty of it, is this: there is a sympathy among many in the Catholic Church to be welcoming of gays. And I think that that's a good thing. All should be welcome. But they have allowed that to be warped in which they tolerate.
Well, they're especially
behavior
because
that
if you don't
happens to be
believe,
gay.
then they want you to believe.
In other words,
so
they don't want to purge all gays from the church, so there's been this, well,
they try
it's
to
a
get you to
lonely
believe.
lifestyle and people are going to do terrible things, and try to work your way through this. And there's been this empathy here, not accepting the reality that you can be gay without being a pedophile, and not accepting the reality that you can be gay and not have sex at all. Catholic priests are not to have sex with anyone, heterosexual, homosexual, or whatever. But I think that this desire, and Pope Francis was the one who came out and said that who am I to judge with regard to homosexuality, has allowed him to therefore have blinders on individuals in the church who may have been gay and acted inappropriately beyond whatever their own sexual preference was. And this is it's a crisis within the Roman Catholic Church. And I think that the frustration from people who are within the church is that they have had so long to be able to clean this up and deal with it, yet we keep hearing more and more stories. And what the church has been unwilling to do is what many people have demanded, and that is to get them all out. If they're involved in bad behavior, get rid of them. This doesn't mean that you can't have other types of mercy and forgiveness, but they don't get to deal with the public anymore, which should be the solution to this problem. But it's been very, very hard for the church, and it's been very, very hard for the church in Milwaukee to be able to deal with it as well. And now Pope Francis, who I think has tried to be this pope who is welcoming to all Catholics, and a lot of the conservatives think he's too liberal and so on, it's now caught him up where this whole notion of mercy ends up backfiring. It not only creates something that isn't merciful, but it makes everybody here look bad. This problem is not restricted to the Catholic Church. People have been looking the other way at individuals who are involved in inappropriate conduct forever and ever and ever. This is the same problem that Tony Evers has. Look the other way, there's nothing I can do about it, what am I supposed to do? And now it's an issue in the campaign for governor. We not only have the case of Middleton, Wisconsin, widely discussed, where a teacher was caught viewing pornography at school, showed it to others, and often commented to other teachers about the chest size of female students, so forth and so on. Evers said that he didn't believe he had the authority to take away the guy's teaching license. But he never tried. Yank it, make the guy go to court, fight, try to make the case. Now there's another story. Again, the same thing. Evers didn't do anything about another teacher involved in inappropriate behavior. This one involves a teacher at, it's one of the schools in Beloit Turner, and it was reported over the weekend by Dan Weiss in the Journal. There's a woman who's a teacher at Beloit Turner High School. She was sending sexually provocative notes to a student via Snapchat. Snapchat is the app at which you can make the text go away. The teacher involved in the case is named Daleen Yoger. According to complaints made by Republicans and reported in the media, a lawyer for the Department of Public Instruction, the agency that Evers runs, felt that they had a case against her and they could take her license away. Evers again did nothing. He apparently was frozen into inaction given the fact that the student didn't want to complain against the teacher, and the teacher deleted the text messages. Again, Evers didn't, well, I don't know, she's a young teacher and all of this, what am I going to do? This let's look the other way and let's not go after it occurs all over the place. How many families have faced this situation? Here's weird old Uncle so-and-so. He babysits with the, with the relative, and he does something inappropriate. How many times did they say, okay, Uncle so-and-so, you can't babysit anymore, and leave it at that? As opposed to call the police and get Uncle so-and-so thrown in prison. I think, given the fact that we see that so many of these individuals who do it once do it 15,000 times, that many of us in society are now demanding a crackdown and demanding that people get tough on this. But it's all over the place. You certainly saw leaders in the Catholic Church washing their hands, and I think you've seen people like Tony Evers washing their hands. Everybody's washing their hands. And now people want to go back and judge them for the washing of hands that was done. And probably appropriately so. This brings me to another story. This is reported in the media over the weekend as well. Again, and the Catholic Church, if anything, is snake bit on this. A school teacher, and it's not a public school, it's a Catholic school, is accused of sexually assaulting a student that he was tutoring in 2012. The teacher currently works at Holy Apostles in New Berlin, but the allegations occurred, behavior that occurred when he was teaching at St. Matthias, which is in West Allis.
Jeez, 3 people.
Now, in telling this story, there
Same
is a
colors,
bizarre component to the story that I want to stress and underline. And I always tell people this when I share somebody's name. Don't assume that when you hear someone's name that it's the person you know. There are 2 people with this name who teach in local Catholic schools. I don't know how that happens because it's not a common name. I don't want to tell you where the other one teaches, but make sure that you're not assuming the wrong one. This is the one who taught in West Allis and currently in New Berlin that's been accused, and not someone who has this same identical name and happens to be involved in a local Catholic school to the north of Milwaukee. This individual's name is Kevin D., and important that we name the initial D as in dog, Bulow. 45 of West Allis is accused of first-degree sexual assault of a child under 13, according to the criminal complaint, since the victim came forward and reported the conduct that occurred. When being tutored by Bulow, other students would say that he did things like spank them and touch them inappropriately in the leg area and so on. The contact involved here, under the skirt stuff, so forth and so on. He's a teacher in a Catholic school. Again, one wonders, did they get rid of him at one school? Well, we don't want to have this guy around, we've heard bad things, and just leave it at that. Drop it. Well, don't ruin his life. Tell him don't do anything, and then he wanders off somewhere else. This is how most people handle things like this. Look at the situation with Urban Meyer. There is certainly no pedophilia or anything involved there. Urban Meyer is accused. He's going to be suspended for 3 games at Ohio State because he found out that one of his assistant coaches was abusing his wife and didn't do anything about it. I think that Joe Paterno at Penn State, we can go on and on with these cases. Generally speaking, the default reaction of many people in many different institutions when they hear that a grown-up is messing around with a kid is to try to stop the behavior, separate things, and leave it at that rather than get the cops involved. I think society is screaming out right now that we need to get the cops involved. And you need to get rid of and terminate instantly the people that do this. That if they're going to mess around with kids, they don't get to work anywhere. But even if you fire them, there's no guarantee they won't go somewhere else and start committing this behavior unless they are prosecuted. First story coming out after the break. And the first thing I'm going to do coming out after the break, we're going to try to send somebody to Las Vegas. All these perverted things that people have. I mean, one of the things that I have been blessed with is an extremely boring life and boring tastes. I like attractive adult women. I mean, all this other stuff that people have and the demons that they have, and you can debate forever and ever and ever what are you supposed to do with people who have these desires and so on. Everybody's got bad desires about something. The thing that differentiates between good people and bad people is good people don't do the bad things that they want to do, and bad people do the bad things that they want to do. You see, so you got an opportunity to embezzle $20,000 in the company that you work for. The bad person does it. The good person, I'm not going to do it, even though I need the money. You can resist the need, the urge to do anything. I don't care what it is, how bad the addiction is. You have the ability, the human willpower to say, no, I'm not going to do it. And when people have done bad things and it victimizes others and it marks and it scars them for life, I think we've made it clear that we're fed up with it. And it's an instant, I mean, there's just the individual involved in the Boy Scouts who was implicated in this kind of behavior. It's going on and on and on, and it is everywhere. And it has led to a situation in which no one trusts anyone. I'm going way long here, and I can't help it. If Paul was here, I would blame Paul for letting me go too long, but can you imagine if I said, Armin, why didn't you stop me from going long? I mean, imagine if you stop me from going. Johnny Carson's producers tried to stop him from going long when Johnny Carson's son had died. And he was showing photos of his son had taken, photographs that his son had taken, and his producer, the guy that always stood off the set, Fred de Cordova, gave him the signal to wind it up, wrap the thing around. Fred de Cordova never stood on the set again for the remainder of the program. Wrong time to tell Johnny Carson when to wind it up. Anyway. I was sent this by a listener. Some of you may know Father Paul Hartman. He ran Waukesha Catholic Memorial High School for some years. Highly respected priest. He's now running a couple of the Roman Catholic priests on the North Shore. I think Fox Point and Whitefish Bay. And he sent out an email to all of the parishioners, and I think he might have put it in the church bulletin, saying, it's so frustrating for the priests that are honest and decent to have to deal with these things over and over and over again. And he mentioned, that he had just helped an altar boy tie his, one of the things on the uniform or something, and he thought he's angry that he has to now worry how somebody would interpret that. This is what it has come to. I mean, here I am, a regular old guy that doesn't have any kids. I mean, I think back, you see somebody's kid, you used to pat him on the head. I don't want to do that stuff anymore. You don't even want, let's suppose you have a kid, and here's also, remember how somebody grown up and grab you by the shoulders and say, oh, he's a growing boy and all of that stuff. You don't know why they do that anymore, because you don't know what's inside. Is this another creepo getting his jollies? One of the things I think we did not know then that we do know now is there's way more perverts than we thought there were. And one of the reasons that we didn't know there were so many is everybody kept their mouths shut about all of it. I mentioned that I was, I went to a Catholic grade school. I was an altar boy.
Keep forgetting.
A bunch of different priests who came through. I never had anything like this happen to me, and I never heard of anything like this. This is not to say that it wasn't. Nobody ever said anything to me. I hadn't heard of nothing. Yet we're told in that era that this was so common and it occurred everywhere. I never saw anything like this. But that doesn't mean it wasn't happening. Who knows? No one even knows anymore. They look the other way and mind your own business. That was a standard that was accepted in numerous of our institutions. And people are making it clear they think that was a bad standard and they want us to start reversing it right now. And they're willing to go out and make decisions retroactively about the people who are doing all of this looking the other way. And one of the people looking the other way is Tony Evers, who wants to be the governor of this state. And he can create all the revisionist history that he wants to create. Well, I didn't think I could do this. I didn't think I could do that. I didn't have the authority. You never tried to do anything. Because you're a lazy, tired old hack. All right. Enough on that. I'm going to be giving you the iHeartRadio Music Festival Flyaway Contest texting word. Very first thing coming out of the break. It's now 5:08.
It's time for Rapid Traffic.
Well, the flooding is not getting better. In fact, we're getting worse, with the northbound side of I-43 now closed in Ozaukee County thanks to flooding, which is happening just south of Highway 60. Originally, they had a lane closed in each direction of 43. Now the northbound side is so bad that they've had to close down the northbound lanes entirely at Pioneer Road, Highway C.
Both directions of I-43 closed.
No. Just the northbound side is closed, but southbound side is affected. So
okay,
we've got all the traffic being diverted off at that Pioneer Road. That's the
northbound,
right, and that is the what everybody would refer to as the Cedarburg exit, essentially. So you're looking at just a monstrous, lengthy backup to exit at that point. In fact, almost stretching back now to the Ozaki-Milwaukee County line. So that is just a stretch of highway you need to avoid.
Well, that's miles.
Yeah, it's got to be, I don't know.
And it's only 2 lanes up there besides.
Right.
And wow.
Yeah, so the sooner you can
You're
jump
going to
off
want to
the
get
freeway-
off real early.
Yeah,
I mean,
I would
good
say
brown deer.
Yeah, exactly. Leaving Milwaukee.
And I would think Port Road isn't going to be the best option. I mean,
right, because that's where everybody's heading. You get off. The immediate alternate that the state put out is to just go over to County W, which is Port Washington Road north up to 60, and then back onto the freeway. But that is just bumper to bumper as well. There is Highway C to the east of the freeway, which is not a bad alternate. You can take that just east and then north along Highway C.
I know about these alternate routes. I tried to get off of I-94 northbound over the weekend because it was stopped in Racine County. And
right.
I was mentioning that I was in Summers, and when I was talking about that story earlier. Well, that's why I was in Summers, and I calculated that, okay, I was moving the whole time, that it probably would have been the exact same amount of time that if I would have taken the freeway. It was right there. The DOT had the sign up, and it was like 45 minutes to get through Racine County.
Right.
But it took me about that long to go all the way around and loop it around because everybody else is doing the same thing. I mean,
it really depends on
County H and Summers never saw as much traffic as it was seeing them because we were all using our navigation to try to do the exact same thing. And now the flooding and
yeah. I mean, I can send you pretty far afield. It just depends on how far you want to drive.
Well, I'm always happy. I would much rather double the time if I'm moving than sit there and not move because of my issues of not having any patience. All right, I understand. I think we got a
southbound side is 1 lane blocked just south of Highway 60. This all centers right around Falls Road, which is
they're doing
the next
construction in my
overpass
apartment.
south of Highway 60.
Around my
It's not an
apartment.
interchange, but it is a crossover
in
there.
it. They were in it, actually,
be
but
aware
now
that
they're
you've got
out.
some monster delays to deal with there. You've got 43 southbound slow from Locust Street into the Marquette interchange in Milwaukee County, 15 Brown Deer to downtown, and 94 westbound is 24 from the Marquette to Moreland. From the Lynch Buick GMC of West Bend Total Traffic Center, I'm John Wyatt.
I'm
News
on
Talk
leave,
1130
that's why.
WISM.
1130 WISM
I
Mark
gotta
Belling late
barrel
afternoon show.
quick come back.
And then there's this story. Oh, gotta get the word. Maybe that first. Here it is. iHeartRadio Music Festival Flyaway Contest. Text in word. The word is DICE. D-I-C-E. As in roll the dice. Dice. You still have 45 minutes or so, about 43 minutes actually. Text that to 200 200. The word is dice. Prize, of course, is a trip for two to the iHeartRadio Music Festival in Las Vegas, the 21st and 22nd of next month. Round trip airfare, 2 nights hotel, ground transportation, and tickets to the iHeart Festival. If you play the contest, you'll get a text confirming entry plus iHeartRadio info, standard data, and message rates apply. The word is DICE. Text that to 200 200. Now this story. You can see this happening. A man is accused of sexually assaulting a 4-year-old after the 4-year-old's mother allowed her son to go into a public restroom with the guy. This is one of those stories where, again, I think years ago you could see how this would happen. You wonder how it's happening now because we have learned that. I could almost see myself doing something like this, not the molestation, but volunteering to be a nice guy and take the kids going to the... Here's parents, she's got kids. Kid has to go to the bathroom. We've all seen this situation when there's children of the opposite gender. In other words, maybe a dad with his little daughter or a mom with her little boy. Kids are about 4 or 5 years old. Which bathroom are they supposed to use? This is never aside, never mind the same-sex bathroom discussions that we have in society and so on. But let's imagine imagine you're a woman. You're with your son in a public place. The kid is about 3 or 4 or 5 years old. Do you send the boy in by himself? Do you want to be with him? You're going to be with him. Are you going to be the mom going in the men's room with the boy? Or are you going to take the boy into the... There's no good way to handle this. And it's an opportunity for perverts to step in and do awful things. In this case, the guy actually has a record. He was convicted back in '06 of inappropriate behavior causing trauma to a child. He served several years in prison. The guy's name is Daniel Mangert. Mangert. Story is reported over the weekend in the newspaper. He's been charged of sexually assaulting a 4-year-old boy in a county park restroom after persuading the boy's mother not to send the child to the women's restroom. According to the criminal complaint, as reported on JS Online, the boy's mother was rushing to get ice for her daughter who had fallen when her son needed to use the restroom at Humboldt Park in Bayview. You can just see this happening. You can just see how something like this would occur. Mom's at the park. She's got two kids. The daughter falls and gets hurt. At the absolute worst time, the other kid says he has to go to the bathroom. This has happened in life. How many times? 85 million. The mother's trying to get ice for her daughter because she fell. In the meantime, here's the other kid. I got to go to the bathroom. And here steps in the alleged pervert. The mom was telling the boy to go into the women's room by himself. Mangert shows up and says, "Don't worry, I'll take him into the boys' room." And according to the criminal complaint, he kept persisting. Now, Mom clearly should have been a more cynical and skeptical person. But let's face it, in real life, this is the sort of thing that you would just expect a nice stranger. Oh, don't worry, I'll take the kid in. Finally, the woman let the boy go with Mangert so she could attend to her daughter. When she returned to outside the men's restroom, she began calling her son's name and asked another man who walked out if he'd seen a child inside because the boy hadn't come out. He said no, but he walked back in to check when the boy ran outside, followed by Mangert. The woman confronted Mangert, who said he only helped the boy wipe himself. Oh, my God. According to the criminal complaint, Mangert later that day went to South Shore Park and tried to jump off the cliff in some sort of goofed-up attempt to kill himself. I guess he failed. He's now criminally charged. Mangert is on his Facebook page. There's photos of him with everybody. There's a photo of him with Tom Barrett. There's a photo of him with Chris Larson. There's a photo of him with Chris Sinecki. Apparently he's like Mr. Local Volunteer Democrat down there in Bayview. I guess he's the Bayview pervert. You can see how all of these things happen, and it is sad that I have to say the following, but we have to. You just have to be worried that everybody is somebody who wants to mess around with a kid right now. Even though clearly most people still don't. So I said there's way more of them than I think we had ever thought. And despite the fact that so many of them are getting caught and are punished, these perverts can't control themselves. This guy, imagine this poor mother. She probably has seen the guy before. Okay, he must be okay. He's somewhere around here, this, that, and the other thing. The mother, only a few feet away, he goes in there and it's jollies with the boy. You just want to kill people like this. It's the only thing that's ever going to stop him from doing again that and just locking them up for so long that, that they croak in prison. It's really pathetic. 522 News Talk 1130 WIS.
It's time for Rapid Traffic. Continuing to watch these big delays on I-43 northbound into Ozaukee County because of a closure of the freeway northbound 43 at Highway C. That's Pioneer Road. This is all due to flooding that is happening right around the Falls Road area just south of Highway 60. So the traffic has to be diverted off of the freeway there at C, Pioneer Road. Then you go west to Highway W, that's Port Washington Road, and you take that north up to Highway 60 to rejoin the freeway. You could also go east on Pioneer and then north up to Highway 60 as well, but expect big delays, not only on 43 itself, with the backups now extending all the way back to near the Milwaukee-Ozaukee County line, but on Port Washington Road, you're looking at it backed up pretty much all the way from Mequon Road up to Highway 60. So again, you might want to think about even using alternate routes further west. Looking at some backups on southbound 41 that begin before Burleigh down through the Zuna, change 94 westbound type from Miller Park, from the Marquette out past Miller Park, and then again from 84th Street to the county line, 23 minutes downtown to Moreland Road. From the Lynch Buick GMC of West Bend Total Traffic Center, I'm John Wyatt, News Talk 1130 WISN.
the Mark Milling Late Afternoon Show on News Talk 1130 WISN. As usual, trying to jam it all in. Let's start with this. There's a prominent local tax preparer and accountant who's now facing criminal charges in connection with filing false tax returns for NBA player Zaza Pachulia and stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars in the process. The accountant is named Randy Uso, U-S-O-W, from Mequon. The story's been around for a while. What's new are the criminal charges. Pachulia, who played for the Bucks a couple of years ago, is one of those classic NBA overachievers. Zaza can't jump at all. Zaza can't do much of anything at all, but he's winning rings for the Warriors, and he's a pretty good player with the Bucks. He's one of those guys that makes the most of whatever abilities he has, a good passer, the whole thing, and he liked Milwaukee. Wasn't it Zaza that bought the old arena floor? Didn't he want to then ship it back to, to Georgia? Anyway, so Zaza was here. He had a guy do his taxes. And an NBA player's tax, that's a lot of income. Zaza and his wife filed suit last year against Uso. The suit was settled. So whatever they were claiming they were out, that Uso had ripped off, he apparently came up with enough money that they dropped the lawsuit. But that doesn't change the fact that filing a false federal income tax return is a crime. You got a problem with the feds on that. According to the criminal complaint, as reported on JS Online over the weekend, Uso filed false returns on behalf of Pachulia to claim an extremely large tax refund and had the money sent to him, Uso, and he cashed the money. In other words, he filed a return structured on the premise that Zaza should be getting a much bigger refund than Zaza was entitled to, and had the refund sent to him, Uso. That's the criminal allegation against him. It's one of those cases where if you're going to do something like this, you may as well do it for big money because they're probably going to catch you either way. And according to the complaint, he fraudulently claimed that Pachulia had $800,000 in refunds coming to him. As I say, if you're going to swing, you may as well swing for the fences, and that's what Uso is accused of doing here. Shift gears into a segment that I was talking about at the beginning of the program. We're going to try to do this with calls, although Armin doesn't think it's going to work. We had a lot of people have the opportunity to tour the new Bucks Arena, which is, of course, called the Fiserv Forum, over the weekend. When you do a segment like this, often it gets repetitive, and often people only focus on what they don't like. And that makes for terrible radio. Armin knows a little bit of what makes for good radio, and I know a lot about it. And having 8 people in a row complain that the beer prices are too high is unbelievably boring. So, if you've got it, we're interested in first impressions here, and I want you to stick to your 1 or 2 best thing. And you're going to have to tell Armin what your impression is, because if we get 8 people in a row saying the beer prices are too high, we're not going to put all of them on the air. And I don't want it to be overly negative. I'm interested in hearing people's perspectives. I've got a zillion of them, but of course I have a zillion of them. I'm somebody who's very aware of my observations, and the whole point of my tour was to find out what the place was like so I could come back and talk to people about it. But rather than, even though we have limited time, I could just give you a million impressions, and it is the subject of my newspaper column this week. I'm not going to do that entirely. We're going to give you an opportunity here to weigh in on this. So fire away and let's get going here. 414-799-1130 is the phone number. The Abbey Windows and Exteriors toll-free line is 1-800-838-9476. And again, we want to restrict this to people who actually have been in the building. If you've driven past them, that's not good enough. I think that we've got a large volume of potential people to be able to do it. They sold 60,000 of those complimentary tickets over the weekend. Now, I don't know how many people showed up, but I do know this. I know people who were there said that it was mobbed, and when I drove within 4 blocks of the arena, everything was gridlocked up, so a lot of people did it. I had my chance for a tour with a handful of other ticket holders Friday. They had some more of them on Saturday, and I saw a lot of the building, and I've got a lot of impressions here. We're going to take some from the audience here, and we're going to start them. Just make sure they're good ones. See, if you don't have, like, if you're boring and you have nothing to say, don't call up. If you're an interesting person and have an interesting observation, we really do want to hear from you on this topic, and I'll leave it to Armin to decide who is who. Let's take a break. 538 News Talk 1130 WISN.
It's time for Rapid Traffic.
Do you have a chance to get over there yet, or
No,
you
I was
outside?
gone all weekend, so I have not seen that.
So you don't know what's going on in there.
I haven't even been downtown in like 6 months, so I have no idea.
Did you know that there is an arena?
I heard something about it.
Do you know what the act? I mean, they've had 90 different I don't even know what the grand opening is, but the first actual event is a week from tomorrow. That's the concert with the Killers and the Violent Femmes. The first actual Bucks game's a preseason game in the middle of October, but there's concerts in between. But this is
holy cow, there are a lot of concerts.
It's remarkable. Where were all of these acts coming before this? The Bradley Center would get like 3 a year. I mean, this place got 4 months.
I think Bradley Center was a tough place to put on a show. I don't know why, but you just get the sense that there must be something about this building that must be good for putting on a show that somebody figured out that they promoted that.
The other thing, a lot of times to do the Bradley Center, you have to be the kind of act that would sell 15,000 tickets, or you go to another venue. Maybe some of these bands figure that this building's like Jim Gaffigan's playing it. How can a comedian play an arena this? I guess he can.
This is like his second hometown, so he does really well.
But maybe in this first couple of years, it'll be the same thing with the Bucks. That attendance for everything will be up. It's just people who want to go into the
see the new
building. Anyway, enough of listening to you when you haven't been in the arena. When we have actual listeners who are sitting there, you're wasting even more time. I've been in there, Mark. I want to share my
43 Northtown remains blocked at the Pioneer Road exit. This is because of the flooding that is going on just south of Highway 60. They started with just a lane blockage. Evidently, that did not stand up to the amount of water that is flowing across the roadway. So they're diverting it Highway C, Pioneer Road. You go west on C to Port Washington Road, which is County W, just west of the freeway. Take that up to Highway 60. You can also go east on C and take that up to Highway 60. But I'll tell you, both of those routes are packed in tight, as is 43 now, from about Dundas Bay Road up to the closure. So the sooner you jump off 43 northbound and look for alternate routes, the better off. 94 eastbound looking heavy from 76th Street to 35th Street. It's 16 minutes to get from Moreland into downtown. Westbound on 894 looking tight for the Mitchell Interchange out past Loomis Road. From the Lynch Buick GMC of West Bend Total Traffic Center, I'm John Wyatt, News Talk 1130 WISN.
All programs on News Talk 1130 WISN are broadcast through the NX Wealth Management Studios. NX Wealth Management. Know the difference.
News Talk 1130 WISN, Mark Belling, late afternoon show. There's a huge, big blob of storms right now, kind of on the Minnesota-Wisconsin state line. Some of it will say north of our area, but it's going to bring in more storms tonight, tomorrow, and then again tomorrow evening. Still warm tomorrow. Tonight's low only 75 with isolated storms. And then more storms, especially tomorrow morning. Warm tomorrow, high 87, but a big drop in temperatures with the second round of storms tomorrow night. And that's going to bring it down to 64 for a low tomorrow night, and Wednesday's high only 69. Pleasant weather for the rest of the week. Partly to mostly sunny both Thursday and Friday. Highs those days right around 70 to the low 70s. A little bit warmer for the Labor Day weekend with the giant Harley 115 reunion in town. Impressions of the Fiserv Forum, we have to call it that, and not the new Bucks Arena anymore. And we're going to take some calls, and I'm going to share some of mine. My newspaper column this week, I made a list because I based it on the old movie, the Italian Western, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I gave you the goods, the bads, and the uglies, but let's take some reactions from callers here. Let's go to Waukesha and Dominic. You're on News Talk 1130.
Hey, Mark. So I've been a season ticket holder for a number of years, and I'm behind the basket about 12, 15 rows right on the aisle. I always felt farther away from the court. My first perception when I went down to my seats when they had the season ticket holder event on Saturday was that I felt a lot closer to the floor. I feel like there was a lot of wasted space in the old arena. and they
Well,
really.
you're not going to tell me that that's because your new seats are in the front row, I hope.
Yeah, I know.
I should mention that a lot of people who, were season ticket holders, that they tried to put them, unless they didn't want to pay the money, kind of in the same general area. So if you're in row 26 in the corner, you'd still be in row 26 in the corner. So your row is probably comparable to what you had in the past, right?
Yeah, very much. I really didn't want to move because I'm in kind of a unique area where the people right to the right of me and the people right in front of me pay more. So I like my area, and I was happy they kept me in a similar.
And you're saying that you felt as though you're closer now.
So much closer. I mean, there was so much wasted space in the old arena, and that was my buddy's perception too. Is immediately we felt right closer to the action.
That was one of the things that I put in my goods in writing my column. The sight lines are dramatically improved. In part, the Bradley Center was built for hockey, so you had this large bowl area where an ice rink would fit onto, whereas this arena is built for basketball, so they're able to angle everything in, and it's much closer. So you have an arena that is larger in size, fewer seats, and that allows them to make everybody closer in than they used to be. Yeah, I think that the sight lines are very, very good, and the point that you make, especially for the people that were behind the basket, because that huge whole gap, because the seats didn't really, other than the little seats they put on the floor, they didn't really start until the area where, the boards behind the hockey would be, whereas now they can have the entire bowl in a basketball circle wrapped around the court. Pretty good. Okay, thanks. To Brad in Germantown, you're on News Talk 1130 WISN.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for taking the call. Two things I'd say real quick. First, it was very Milwaukee, but also very cosmopolitan. Just the way it looked, it felt like home, as crazy as that sounds. But, the art that they had on the third floor, or on the club level, I thought was just amazing as well. And I think that kind of typifies it. The place...
The place is filled with artwork, which is kind of weird. In fact, I don't know if you got this book. They handed out to me this book that's got a page on every one on each artist and their work of art creation. I am worried about one of them. On one of the floor levels, there's one where somebody created like a basketball hoop kind of thing. Somebody's going to rip that thing off in the first. Yeah, they got all that artwork. The reason I think you think that it feels like Milwaukee is the floor it's the old two-tone floor with the M, and kind of the same floor that based off of going back originally to a takeoff of the old one that was at the original arena. So it kind of seems like a Milwaukee thing, and there's going to be Wisconsin kind of logo stuff on it. But yeah, I would agree with you. It seems trendy and with it.
Yes.
Those are dorky words, but I think that's what you're saying. To Ryan in Menominee Falls, you're on News Talk 1130 WISN.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, sorry. The couple of things, I've been a season ticket holder for the last year, and one of the good things that I like that I've always appreciated about Miller Park and most baseball fields is the open concept when you're going up for concessions. You're not cut off from the rest of the stadium. You're not going around walls. I like that it was open when you're up there, and you can still feel the energy, or you will be able to feel the energy. Obviously, there was no energy in there Sunday. But
the reaction that you're referring to here, that's the first thing. And up until this weekend, of the people that I knew who had been into the building, they all have the same first reaction. I'll refer to my dentist, I'll refer to my barber, I'll refer to everybody else that I know that go in. They all say the same things. There are no walls. When I say there are no walls, you think about going into the Bradley Center when you walk in. There's wall in front of it. There's the wall and concession stands, and there's the little crack that you then walk into to go to your seat. When you walk into this arena, there is no wall. The concession stands are behind you, so when you walk into the floor that you're on, what you see in front of you are the seats and then the floor down below, so that it's open. So you can be walking around on the concourse and looking down and seeing the seats, whereas in the current arena, if you're walking around the concourse, all you're seeing are the food stands. They've laid the food stands behind you so that in front of you is the court, and everyone seemed to like that notion of it being totally open, and it's that way on all of the levels, including the upper deck.
Yep. That was the one big thing that I took away from it. The other thing that I liked, and we went and had a chance to sit in every kind of seat. There's really not a bad seat in the house if you're not being too picky, even way up the site of the court and everything else.
Well, you know what I think of upper decks. I don't ever want to be in one. I went to the very top of the upper deck, and I sat in the last one, admittedly mid-court. I thought that was an excellent view. I didn't go sit in any seat behind the basket or in the corners of the top of the upper deck, But the angle down was pretty good. I still think it's steep. I mean, I think all upper decks are steep, and you always think you're going to fall down the steps. But first of all, the upper deck is much smaller than the upper deck in the Bradley Center because way more of the seats are in the lower bowl than the current arena configuration. But I thought the seat at the top of the upper deck was an excellent seat to be able to watch a basketball game. And the pitch of the seats is good enough that unless you have somebody 7 feet in front of you, you're going to easily be able to see
I'm
over
sorry.
their head. So I know
Just
they
listen
work
to Mark
very hard
Belling.
and got to touring
If
this
anyone's
thing.
watching,
They're
I'm
throwing
texting my
everything
friend.
they can into the upper deck because we all know what the problem has been at the Bradley Center. The lower bowl was always filled and the upper deck was always the hardest sell. They charge a fortune for the lower bowl. People would rather pay a fortune than pay next to nothing to sit in an upper deck. The upper deck's got every possible bell and whistle thrown into it to try to make it an attractive place. And, you know, that's always still the hardest ticket to sell is the worst seats in the house. But they've created a nice concourse, a nice amenity, and the most spectacular part of the building is the panorama, and that's the thing at the top of the building, which is above the upper deck at the roof level, and that's something else that somebody's going to talk about and mention real quickly, I'm sure. Thanks for the call. Greg and Brown Deer, you're on News Talk 1130 WISN.
Hey, Mark. I'm 6'2", and the seats in the Bradley Center have always bothered me, especially in the upper bowl. And my wife and I went and sat literally in every seat in every major section. And I was okay with all of them. Obviously, something like the West End corner there was the best. But that all the seats I could sit through an entire game, and I wouldn't have as much of a problem as I had in the Bradley Center.
You said you're 6'2". Because you know
Yeah,
what?
I'm 6'2".
I think the legroom stinks. I think it's as bad as the Bradley Center. And I put that in the newspaper column that I wrote. The seats themselves are extremely comfortable, wide and cushy. In fact, I wanted to take my seat home so I could sit in it, but and I'm a little taller than you, I had to fan my legs a little bit. I sit on the aisle just for that reason. You're fanning your eye. The other thing I'll mention with that, since there are fewer sections, that means they eliminated aisles, which is a good thing, but it also means there's a lot of rows in each section. My row, there's 22 seats in it. That means seats 10 and 11 are right in the middle. That guy who's going to have to go to the can or wants to get up to go get a beer in the middle of the game is going to hack everybody off because it's still a very narrow aisle. I don't think that the legroom is much better. Now, legroom in arenas, of course, is wasted space. The reason why the earlier caller said he feels closer to the action, every extra 3 inches you put in an aisle pushes everybody else farther back. They want to keep you close, but they also want it to be comfortable. And it's like the airplanes right now. Most people aren't over 6 feet like you and I are, so what do they care about the legroom? But for those who do, I would say that would be one area where I didn't think there was much improvement. Although you're right, the Bradley Center is terrible. Bradley Center, unless you were sitting in the folding chairs right at the front, there was no legroom. It was just miserable. I mean, the old seats I used to have at the Bradley Center, I felt like I was an accordion the entire game. I won't say it's that bad, but I don't think the new arena is all that much better in that area. Thanks for the call. To Brad in Cedar Grove, you're on News Talk 1130 WISN.
Hey, Mark, my first impression was how much standing room there appears to be in that arena. Kind of like what the last guy said, where it's really open, but there seems like there's tons of party decks where they're going to have to be, I'm assuming, selling standing room seats in those areas.
Yeah, you asked a good question there. I know the capacity 17,000. Will they sell standing room? I don't know. Miller Park, they do. They sell some. Miller Park sells some standing room where people just, there's all those areas at Miller Park you can kind of walk around and sort of see. I don't know if they're going to be selling tickets to people who don't have a seat. That what you mentioned, though, because the arena is open, we were talking earlier, they're not having the walls, you don't have to be in your seat. You can look around, walk around, as you're walking around the arena and still see the game. So I don't know the answer to that, but you are right. There's way more places to walk around, which will bring me to my next observation. You mentioned all those places to walk around. What exists at every one of those places?
Beer stand?
Or food stand. The food is way higher. High-end food, high-end this, high-end that, everywhere you look. The reason why the Bucks needed a new arena is they needed a building that could throw off more money to the owners of the team. This thing is designed and set up to have so many different places for you to go and spend your money. In other words, they're all nice and they're all places you want to be, and the food is all good, and that's the whole point of the whole thing. Create an arena in which people are going to spend even more money than the ticket is going to, and you're facing constant temptations as you walk around this open thing, because here's this nice thing, and then there's that nice thing, and then here's this party area, and then there's this, and then there's that, and then there's the other thing. Take for the call. We'll take a few more of your calls. Again, we're taking first reactions to people who had an opportunity to get into the Fiserv Forum over the weekend or have an opportunity to see it. Your best reaction. 414-799-1130 or Abbey Windows and Exteriors toll-free 1-800-838-9476. We'll take a few more in the next segment. 556 News Talk 1130 WISN.
I'm a traveling man, made a lot of stops.
It's time for Rapid Traffic. I-43 northbound blocked at Highway C, Pioneer Road, because of flooding just south of Highway 60. All traffic being pushed off of the freeway there at that Pioneer exit. Good news is we're starting to see a little less volume headed that way, so the backups now only start, I say only, at Mequon Road up to the closure. But we're still seeing heavy delays on Port Washington Road, almost that same length from the Mequon Road area all the way up to Highway 60. You may want to jump off the freeway sooner and use alternate routes that go a little bit further west if you don't want to sit in a long line of cars waiting to exit. If you're traveling through Washington County, you're going to find big backups now just north of the 41-45 split because of a crash just before Highway 60 in the Slinger area that blocks the right lane. From the Lynch Buick GMC of West Bend Total Traffic Center, I'm John Wyatt, News Talk 1130 WISN.
Bradley Cooper directing it, Lady Gaga playing the Barbra Streisand role. Taking a reaction, we actually have a couple of lines open if you wanted to call in on this. I assumed we'd be overwhelmed with calls. On the other hand, then I bawled everybody out and said, if this isn't really interesting, don't even think that you should call in. Or maybe Armin is right. They all just want to call in and claim that the beer is overpriced.
All right.
Anyway, we have open lines. 414-799-1130 or Abbey Windows and Exteriors toll-free 1-800-838-9476. To Josh on the south side, you're on News Talk 1130 WISN. We've also had no reaction from any woman, which is interesting. It's all been guys so far. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, a lot of women were there, so when I was...
I know. I saw the crowd.
The views are amazing of the city skyline. They're going to use that every national game. And I was at a Bucks Lakers game at the Staples Center. It's a smaller version of that. At least it seemed like it to me. A lot of artwork depicting Bucks players in action, and the art's just amazing. But yeah, the views were just...
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, you don't want to compare everything to the Bradley Center. On the other hand, it's the only thing that most of us have as a basis in comparison. I really haven't been to a lot of these new arenas around the United States, and almost every NBA team has one. I can compare it to the United Center, which actually I think is more like the Bradley Center than this building is, in that the United Center does not have the open concept. It has much wider concourses than the Bradley Center had. Bradley Center always, when you had a sold-out game, seemed like a mob scene because there were only two places for the people to be able to go, and that was in your seat or walk around in those kind of jammed concourses. The design of this building is set up to do a lot of different things. Most people have a club. In other words, depending on where your seat is, you have a club that you're allowed to go into. Now, the hope is that people therefore go into their clubs and stay off of the concourse to reduce this volume of people that are out there. You mentioned the panorama. I'm assuming you're talking about the one at the top of the building, right?
It was facing downtown. I've seen it other views,
but you mean at the top of the building?
I thought it was on the third floor, but I could be wrong. You're looking southeast.
Are you talking about the one where you went out of the balcony, or just looking out the window?
Out the window. I didn't know it was a balcony.
I see what you're talking about. For people who are wondering what he's referring to, the design of the building, everybody knows about that kind of big, swoopy, brown kind of thing over the top. The front and the side of the building is glass, so you can see out of it. So when you're looking out of the building, when you're not looking toward the court, you're looking out toward the city, which is a very interesting view. Now, at the very top, and I mentioned everything that they're trying to do to induce people to want to go get a seat in the upper deck. The very top of the building, they have a level called panorama. In other words, this would be above where the upper deck is, as close as you can get to the ceiling. There's a nice walk-around area where you can watch the game from up there, and you can go outside. There's a balcony in which you can go outside and stand and overlook the city. Now, it's going to be the middle of winter when most of these games are played, and a lot of people aren't going to do that. But it's a very, very impressive area. It's very nice up there, and it's, as I said, way at the top, and it's and it's never going to be that crowded because the upper deck itself doesn't have that many seats, and the upper deck has its own main concourse down below, and this thing is above that. So there's a lot of things that are in here that are just kind of nice and cool. Without getting on all of the positives, there are some negatives that nobody's mentioned yet, and maybe I should get into a couple of those. The biggest negative is I think the parking structure is. I think it's outrageous that something this ugly would be allowed to go next to that arena. The parking structure is. I described in my newspaper column. It's like a tornado hit a trailer park, and this is the scrap heap. This is the scrap metal place from a trailer park. It's got these stupid metal shingles on the side of it. It's an unattractive Soviet-style 70s type building. It's not located in the best place for access to the arena. As a parking structure itself, it's awkward because it's going to dump a lot of cars at a 6th Street, which isn't a very wide street, but it is just outrageously ugly. The practice facility across the street is an average looking at best exterior building. The parking structure, which is going to have the apartment complex tied into it, is horrible. When you create an arena as nice looking as this one is, and as beautiful as it is from the inside, why you would put this aluminum piece of garbage on the corner of the entrance of the first view most people are going to have is what comes off of McKinley, which is the ugliest side of the arena. They designed this whole thing so that people see it for the first time coming in from the south and the east, because that's where the main entrances are. But people coming off the freeway are seeing it from the north and the west, which means you're seeing the back side of the building, which isn't much to look at, and before that you're seeing that just atrocious, awful, ridiculous parking structure. So that's my big negative on this. The parking structure is terrible, it's ugly, and it almost blights that corner of the property. And I know it's just a parking structure, and they didn't want the parking structure to compete visually with the arena. They want the arena to be beautiful, so let's put a pile of crap next to it. But you can make parking structures and make them not as horrible as this stupid thing looks. To Whitefish Bay and Hank, you're on News Talk 1130 WISN.
Hello, Mark. Yeah, I was there yesterday. Beautiful building, great facilities. But my issue was to get in, you had to download a ticket. I was never able to do that. I spent like half an hour trying to do that. So they gave me out paper tickets, although they said they weren't. But for the regular season, they're going to have digital-only tickets, which is just going to be a disaster. You're going to have to download the Bucks app. I'm going to go to maybe 2 games a year. I don't want the app. Give me a plastic.
I don't want the app either. I downloaded the app. My tickets are digital. I'm going to, like at the, if you sell tickets or give some to friends, you got to send it to them. They have to create the app as well. Some people don't have smartphones. I think the level of an individual's age is going to indicate how much they like that and how much they don't like it. But yeah, it is going to be digital. The other thing is, in order to get into your club, they were giving you wristbands, and so therefore, if you're a ticket holder who's assigned to a club, you're showing the digital app, and some people are just awkward and bad at that, and then they're going to wrap a wristband around your thing. This is Milwaukee. Everybody shows up for Bucks games 2 minutes before tip-off. They're all going to crush it at the same time, and the lines to get into the building, combined with the security, is going to be a mess. So everybody in the world is going to digital only. They don't want to have people printing tickets. It's the way of the future. But I think you're probably right. For a lot of people, it's going to be awkward. I will tell you this. You said you couldn't download the thing. Creating the account is pretty simple, and I hate doing stuff like that. But even if you don't have if you want to go to a Bucks game, you've got to create the account if you want to have the phone on your ticket. And that's the way. For example, let's suppose I just wanted to give you my ticket because I'm really, really nice. The only way for me to do is to send that to you digitally through you with your email address, because you'll have to establish the account. You are right. Some people are not going to like that. Anything else? Keith and Raymond, you're on News Talk 1130 WISN.
Hi, Mark. I went to the facility yesterday, and of course it was pretty crowded, as you know, everybody's been saying.
Yeah, I had the advantage of going Friday. There were 250 people in the building. You were there yesterday with 40,000. Right. I imagine that can affect people's reaction. On the other hand, your view was more realistic than mine, because people are going to be there when it's crowded, not when it's empty, such as when I was there.
Right. Well, I walked around the upper bowl and the lower bowl, and I could not find a drinking fountain in the building. Now, I'm not saying there aren't any, but I could.
Now, why do you think that is?
I know why it is.
You do know why
They
it
can
is.
buy a bottle
What did
of water.
I say? The purpose of this arena is it's to get people to separate themselves from the money and to throw off of revenue. Drinking fountain water is free. Bottles cost what, $6?
Something like that.
You
right.
figured that. So you're a classic Milwaukee cheapskate who doesn't want to buy a bottle of water and you're looking for a bubbler around there. Yeah, I'd be surprised if there were any of them in there.
I couldn't find one, you know. And I'm old enough to know what a bubbler is too. So you know, it's. I even went in some of the restrooms. I thought, well, maybe you put them in a restroom because you don't want the lines of people waiting outside. But you couldn't find one anywhere. So
there are also no plastic straws, and I believe they're going to be paper cups also. This is the politically correct ownership of the Bucks. Thanks for the call. 612 News Talk 1130 WISN. News Talk 1130 WISN, Mark Belling, late afternoon show. There was a big state story today. Foxconn announced a $100 million gift to UW-Madison. Now, the self-serving part of this is one of the issues that's going to develop with Wisconsin becoming a new technology hub with Foxconn coming here and so many of the jobs being technology-focused, engineering-focused, even sales positions need to have a knowledge of the lingo of technology, is that we don't have a lot of people in this state right now that are trained to do this kind of work. And the university system is going to have to be ramped up to create an academic center in which we're producing that type of student and doing the type of research that melds with what the new employment base of the state is going to be. Still, the dollar figure is eye-popping. $100 million is about 20% of the cost of the Bucks Arena, for heaven's sakes. $100 million. The announcement was made by Terry Gow, the chairman of Foxconn. He was on the UW-Madison campus along with Rebecca Blank, the chancellor. The other part of the story is political. Foxconn keeps dumping money into the state of Wisconsin. And where did they dump this money? UW-Madison. You gotta imagine how those lefties are conflicted. First of all, there is nothing that a lefty university administrator worships more than money. But it's coming from Foxconn, which they've been telling everybody is just this terrible, terrible thing. You know, deep down, they wanted to be able to say, we don't want the money. But in the end, they took it. Out of time for today's show. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
Happy trails to you.
Hope this isn't copyrighted. Oh God.
Happy trails.
If this is the part that gets copyrighted and the video gets taken down, it better not. It better not. Per the show, he plays this song after every program, or at the end.
This Smart Belling podcast.
Oh. Alright, I'm done. That's a whole episode of Mark Belling. Probably about 2.5 hours. 2 hours and 20 minutes or so. So I'm done. Alright, goodbye everyone.